can just hold off. Are they on their way? Are they on their way in? Just hold on a second.
Shall I seek some advice?
Yeah, just. I think we look. Yeah. We'll just slight delay to the beginning of proceedings as we just wait for visitors to the gallery to arrive. Just Morena, to our visitors in the gallery, can I just ask you to just take your seats as quickly as possible, thank you. Could I ask our visitors to the gallery, just take your seats, please. The House is about to resume. Kia ora. Morena, The House is resumed for the extended sitting. Call on Government Order of the Day number 9.
Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claim Settlement Bill, first reading.
Mr. Speaker,
The Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
I present a legislative statement on the Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claims Settlement Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. The Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claims Settlement Bill be now read a first time, and I nominate the Māori Affairs Committee to consider the bill. At the appropriate time, I intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 17 September 2026. Rorangatira o Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, nau mai, haere mai, ki tō tātou paramata, tēnei tāku mihi mahana atu kia koutou katoa, I tēnei rā whakahirahira. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui for making the journey here to join us here in Wellington for this significant milestone. It was only 11 days ago that we were together on Kaiwhaiki Pā on the banks of the Whanganui River to sign Te Hei Rau Tuku Tuku, the Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui deed of settlement, and a marvellous afternoon that was. I think of the autumn light and the poi flashing in the afternoon sun, the beautiful waiata, the haka, the speeches, and the eel afterwards, and the hakari, and the wonderful conversation and laughter and tears, and a wonderful day, I think a fitting day. And so I want to acknowledge and extend a warm welcome to everyone who has made the journey here. The redress arrangements in the bill are a tribute to the dedication and perseverance of your lead negotiator, Ken Mayer, who I want to acknowledge today, and his negotiation team, your negotiation trust, the hapu, who have worked tirelessly over the years to achieve the settlement. Many uri have carried the rākau who are no longer with us today, and I acknowledge the emotions that come to the surface on a special day such as this, and naturally people's minds turn to those who have been part of this journey and are no longer with us today. So I want to acknowledge them. I also acknowledge the Crown team for their efforts over the years, including previous ministers Christopher Luxon and the Honourable Andrew Little, and also the Chief Crown Negotiator, the Honourable Rick Barker, who is sitting here in the chamber this morning. This first reading is a significant milestone for Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, and while the negotiations started in July 2017, the Ngā hapu have been seeking recognition and acknowledgement for the Crown actions for generations, with the first claim filed with the Waitangi Tribunal in 1987. The settlement is grounded in the Crown's acknowledgement and apology for its many breaches of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. And these include its conduct during the warfare of the 1840s, the failure to complete the 1848 Whanganui block transaction fairly or in good faith, and for using the outbreak of war in Whanganui in the 1860s. Crown acknowledges also the grave impact of the native land laws system on the hapu and iwi o Whanganui and the alienation of land. And we also acknowledge that the hapu of Whanganui have acted with great mana, always remaining committed to their whenua rangatiratanga and their people. And the Crown failed to protect their collective control and instead promoted legislation that facilitated the alienation of land and resources. And so Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui Claims Settlement Bill seeks to give effect to the settlement package, which provides for financial and commercial redress of 30 million. It includes the transfer of forestry land and the Te Puna Hapori site, Whanganui Intermediate School and the former Ara Moho School. The settlement includes cultural revitalisation funding of 15.5 million as a platform for marae and te reo Māori revitalisation and other social and cultural aspirations yet to be determined. The return of 27 sites of cultural significance, including Motua Gardens, Pai Kātori, which will be vested as a historic reserve, and the establishment of a joint reserves board, Ngā Tute Maru, with the Whanganui District Council to administer sites owned by iwi and the Council. Of course, it goes without saying that no settlement can fully compensate for the loss and prejudice that the people of Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui suffered. It is something, however, that we believe the settlement lays the foundation for social, cultural and economic benefits to help shape their people for generations to come. It will support iwi and hapu in their future endeavours and in realising their aspirations. This is the first reading of 3 in the House, and from here it goes off to the Māori Affairs Committee where the details will be considered. And no doubt there will be much more discussion before it comes back to the House for the second and its final reading. Then it's passed into law, and then it will take effect thereafter. This has been a very long fought settlement. The wounds that it seeks to address have been carried for generations, and it's a great privilege for me on behalf of the Crown and as the Crown, the people of New Zealand, to be the generation that reaches this point and this settlement and this acknowledgement with its apology, and as we look forward to a shared future. And so, Mr. Speaker, I consider that the bill should proceed without delay to the Māori Affairs Committee, and I commend this bill to the House. Tēnā tātou katoa.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Ginny Anderson.
E te mangai o te whare tēnā koe, e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā karangatanga maha o ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. Kua tae mai nei ke te whare e tēnei rā. Tēnā koutou, hui hui mai tātou katoa. Kia ora. Today is a significant day for those gathered in this House today. For generations, the grievances have been carried and long before this bill even arrived at Parliament. So it's important to mark the passage of this legislation in its first reading today. As the Minister has already noted, no settlement can fully restore what was taken, and no apology can erase generations of hurt. But this settlement is an acknowledgement by the Crown that it failed in its obligations under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and those failures caused deep and lasting harm. At the heart of this deed is Te He Rau Tukutuku, the woven strands brought together. The settlement is grounded in the principles of toitū te kupu, toitū te mana, toitū te whenua, integrity, inherited authority, and an enduring relationship between people and whenua. Mr. Speaker, the historical account that lays in the bill on the table makes for difficult readings. It recounts right back how millions of acres were stripped away from the hapu of Whanganui, how martial law was used to do this, how the native land court was used to do this, and even when there was ways sought out to retain collective ownership of land, that this was also undermined. And the deed also records the social impact of those actions: poor health outcomes, lower educational achievement, reduced employment opportunities, and the punishment of children for speaking te reo Māori in schools. Those experiences have shaped generations. When land is lost, it's not just the loss of economic opportunity, but it's also connection, security, identity, and that gives a ripple effect right throughout. This settlement cannot change that history, but I think it can help lay the foundations for the future. The redress package reflects that broader purpose. There is a significant investment into cultural revitalisation, including the funding for te reo Māori revitalisation, marae, and governance structures to support the future aspirations of ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. It's important to see that those traditional place names will also be restored, restoring names such as Pūtiki Wharanui, a Tamatia Pōkai Whenua, Poki Tutu and Kākata, as part of restoring the visibility of that history within the landscape itself. The settlement also creates enduring relationships between ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui and the Crown agencies for education, for health, housing, conservation, justice and social development. These are wise and important relationships to continue for future generations, and it's important to see that those are there. Mr. Speaker, there will always be people who question treaty settlements or ask why these conversations are necessary and must continue. My answer is straightforward. A country cannot move forward honestly while ignoring the consequences of its past. The impacts of dispossession, the impacts and marginalisation do not disappear simply because time has passed. They continue to shape outcomes for communities and generations later. Treaty settlements are part of confronting that history openly rather than pretending it did not happen. They are not about assigning blame to anyone, and while no settlement is perfect, these agreements remain one of the most important nation-building projects undertaken in modern New Zealand. This settlement reminds us that Te Tiriti o Waitangi was never intended to sit quietly as a historical document, disconnected from modern life. It was an agreement about relationships, authority, responsibilities, and how people would live together in this country. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to go close over time. Before I finish, I want to acknowledge that the Crown breached those obligations and communities suffered. The principles I've mentioned, toitu te kupu, toitu te mana, toitu te whenua, those principles speak not only to this settlement, but to the kind of country we want to live in New Zealand, all of us together. Nō reira, he mihi mahana kia koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Mr. Speaker.
Steve Abel.
Tēnā koutou ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. To extend on the reflection in this deed of settlement where is outlined the values of ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. Toitu te kupu, a relationship of innate integrity founded on both the intent of one's word and the truth of its expression. Toitu te mana, a relationship of inherited authority founded on the recognition of iwi and hapu permanence and the shared responsibility to uphold that mana. Toitu te whenua, a relationship of sustenance founded on humanity having an inalienable connection with and responsibility to te taio and its health and well-being. That is indeed a doctrine worthy of founding a nation, and I concur with my colleague, Jenny Anderson that is a very fine basis for the relationship that we should seek to fulfill, that we seek to make amends for through this settlement. The harms and the evils of the Crown committed against your people are uncontested in this House today. We stand in unanimity in recognition of those harms and those evils. And we here seek to make amends for them through this settlement. And it is but a token, a sliver, a fragment of an offering that we make to your people in recognition of the harms of the Crown. And you and your generosity and your dignity and your kindness accept that offering. So kia ora for that. We as representatives of the Parliament and today speaking, thank you for that. Thank you for that generosity. It's notable that your tupuna were some of the first people who were subjected to the total immorality of the New Zealand Company in 1839. The willingness of those first settler capitalist colonisers to dishonestly deal with the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. And there began a long and tawdry battle to get recognition of the land lost, the land taken. And some of your tupuna joined in the struggle against the invasion of Aotearoa by the British and the Kingitanga resistance in Waikato. This term of government, we recognised now that those who fought in the New Zealand wars, the first New Zealanders to defend this land from British invasion, among whom are your ancestors, we now recognise them as heroes who were standing and defending our nation. As part of our Anzac recognitions, now those who fought in the New Zealand wars are recognised, so we acknowledge your ancestors as well for that. My final point is on the impact of the forbidding of the speaking of your language, te reo Māori, in schools. We are very critical of this government not expecting schools to uphold te tiriti o Waitangi, and if we would understand why it is so important, it is the simple fact that one of the primary failings of the Crown in upholding te tiriti was forbidding the speaking of the language in our schools. That is certainly an injustice against te iwi Māori and against your iwi, ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. We support this bill. Kia ora.
Cameron Luxon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koe, tēnā koutou I ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui. Nau mai, haere mai ki tēnei whare. Span to speak in this first reading, and at a first reading, many of us, it's our first chance to actually look at what the bill contains. And reading of this bill is, you first start with the historical account, which is, as has been said, undisputed in this House today. An account of swindling, of war, of abuse of power, and of treating people in abominable ways, from abominable people, and a lack of morality on the Crown's part. The resulting alienation and outcomes are further expressed in the historical account, and we humbly ask for this bill, when it becomes an act, to write into this record of a nation an apology from the Crown. But this is a first reading, and it has got many more stages to go. The bill contains cultural redress, recognition of rohe, of whenua, of connection, recognition of cultural rebuilding and of working together. We are, as a country, trying to continue to build a country that we can be proud of. That requires grace, it requires forgiveness, and that is what is being asked today. No settlement, treaty settlement, will ever completely fix the wrongs of the past, but recognising them, putting them down in every record that we can, and trying our damnedest to work together for a future that is better for the entire citizenry of New Zealand, of everybody who defended this. Thank you, Steve Abel, for mentioning that. Defending this country from the first invaders, as we do now at Anzac Day, and the people who bring that pride as those invaders became part of this country and became what we are today, as we open our hearts to each other and try and create a country that's worthy of all of our te puna. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jenny Marcroft.
E ngā kaumātua me ngā koe o ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, kua tai mai ki tēnei whare o Paramata, ki te tautoko te kaupapa o te rangi nei. Tēnā koutou katoa. E tu ana hou, he uri no te taitokero ki te mihi atu ki a koutou. Ka nui aku mihi maoha ki a koutou, tēnā koutou. Ka mihi a hou, hoki ki a tātou katoa, kua hui hui mai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, I begin with greetings to the uri o ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, who have travelled here to be today to witness the first reading of the ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claim Settlement Bill. We're not just debating legislation today, what we are witnessing is the weaving together of a fragmented history. We're here to acknowledge he rau tukutuku, the many strands of grievance, resilience and hope that has brought us to this moment. On the 2nd of May this year, not so many days ago, ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui and the Crown signed the deed of settlement, he rau tukutuku at Kaiwhaiki Pā. A settlement that acknowledges generations of grievance, it restores mana though, and it sets a pathway forward. And it's looking forward that is so important here today as we can draw a line in the sand and move forward. This milestone marks a new chapter in the journey of the iwi, acknowledging past injustices and paving way for cultural, social and economic development to follow. For generations, Whanganui hapu have carried the impacts of land loss, marginalisation and breaches of te tiriti o Waitangi. The history of this region is marked by the Crown's failure to act in good faith during those early land transactions, most notably the 1848 Whanganui purchase. These actions led to the unfair loss of kāinga and left the hapu virtually landless, causing immense and lasting harm to their social, cultural and economic well-being. For over a century, the people of the lower and middle Whanganui have carried a very heavy burden, Mr. Speaker. They've lived with the scars of the 19th century old land claims, the pain of the 1848 Whanganui purchase, and the devastating impact of the Crown's military actions. Excuse me. These weren't just losses of acres, they were losses of identity, of economic mana and the ability to care for the land as kaitiaki. And while many settlements have common themes, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to highlight some of those which I find particularly impactful. Mr. Speaker, despite a lack of evidence, the Crown unjustly exiled 5 prisoners to Tasmania in 1846, which included Hohepete Umuroa, a tupuna of ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, who died while imprisoned there. The Governor acted in bad faith, misrepresenting the prisoners' offences and asking the authorities to treat the prisoners harshly. Martial law in 1847, Mr Speaker, there was no sufficiently serious emergency or threat to justify extending martial law in Whanganui in March 1847, but was still in place in April 1847 when 5 Whanganui youths were captured after the murder of a settler family, and they were tried by court-martial. 4 of those youths were then swiftly executed as an immediate example. Just some of the losses, the mamai from that period in time, which we should all be ashamed of. But Mr Speaker, today is a new day as we begin a new step forward, and a redress package will include transfer of 27 sites of significance alongside statutory acknowledgements over reserves and conservation areas. But Mr Speaker, the settlement goes beyond a dollar value. It's about restoring mana. It's about recognition and truth-telling. It's about creating opportunity for future generations. To the people of Whanganui, the settlement cannot erase the past, nor can it fully compensate for generations of struggle. But it does signal a new dawn. And as the river flows, so too must this process move forward. I commend the bill to the House.
Tēnā koe te pika.
Tiwi nā rewa peka.
Ua mai rangi, mā turuturu I hoa noa, ka taka ngā roi mata e rua a rangi nui. Ka māpuna ki te whenua, ka rere ko awawa, ka wea a uta, ka wea a tai. Mai I te kāhui maunga puta atu ki Tangaroa, ko Aotearoa, ko ta awa ko au. Kua tai mai ngā apu o Whanganui, kua tai mai he rau tukutuku. Toi tū te kupu, toi tū te mana, toi tū te whenua. Oku whanaunga, tēnā koutou, ata mārie. It was the first time that I've arrived in the house, and the house was waiting for the manuhiri. The house was waiting for ngā hapu o Whanganui. E koera te āhua o te rānei. That to me is a tohu of the start of the opening, the thriving, the pushing of the door that today represents for us as ngā hapu o Whanganui. I want to mihi to the negotiators, to all their teams and the hard work that they've done. I want to mihi to all the hapu and the negotiators on the Crown and the hapu. I want to mihi to all our hapu, our trustees, our workers, our kaimahi. I've seen and I'm grateful as an uri for what it is that you've done for us. I want to mihi to, especially to their whānau, to their wives, their husbands, their mokopuna, their tamariki, who have gone without them as they have gone and fought the fight for us with the Crown. It is a thankless job. There is time that they give, and we are ruthless as a people. We've lost faith in what it is that we have to do when we negotiate with the Crown. It is the whānau who have had to wear all the knocks from the cousin who thinks they could do it better, all the knocks from those who have forgotten what it is like to believe in ourselves. And it is them that miss out on the time with their whānau members. And I don't think the rest of Aotearoa know what it happens behind the scenes to get here in the first place. So I mihi to them all and recognise all the sacrifices you've made for us. I think the really important part is that, yes, we are survivors of Mururo Patu. We have endured some of the worst prejudice, attacks, violence, and state-sponsored evils that Indigenous peoples have had to wear. That doesn't define us, because one of the things we have never lost in all of this is our values. Our values to protect each other, our values to protect our whenua, our values as taught by our awa. And that is what this moment provides to the rest of Aotearoa. The aroha, the manaaki, the forgiveness, the huge humility that our people endure and wear and give to this nation, accepting settlements that are neither equitable, they are neither fair, they are neither just, but they are hope. Today, I stand in honour for our people who show their hope for this nation. I think Ken said it best, Minister, when he said, the Crown, both present and future, must not diminish Te Tiriti. You enjoyed our manaaki. They enjoyed having you. Please do everything you can to make sure that that is honoured. Settlements are a time for us to not only show the world our values, but for us, this generation, to show and provide something for the next generations. It is never about today. We're all responsible for developing something. And the movements in developing something 2-3 generations after Muriropatu are really taxing, really hard. And so it's with hope that I share some of the words that I saw shared from Rangatahi, and Te Ari Paranihi said it so well. She said, settlements create opportunities for growth, leadership and connection to our identity. There is a pathway for better support in education, employment and cultural development. It means our generation can continue to thrive. It gives rangatahi the leadership to uphold our tikanga and contribute to the future of our iwi, our hapu, our whānau. Those are the words of who we represent as a future in Aotearoa. Those are the words of hope and unity, humility. And I stand in absolute homage, not only for the work done from today's generations, but for tomorrow's generations. To my whanaunga, go well, go steady, go knowing that we've got your backs. Kia ora rā.
Carl Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ina mana, ina reo, ina iwi o te motu, tēnā koutou katoa. Ina uri o Whanganui, ina hapu o te awa, tēnā koutou. Mr. Speaker, just over a week ago, I stood at Kawhaki Marae alongside whānau, hapu and leaders of ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui for the signing of Hero Tukutuku. To be present for that moment and witness history in the making, to see generations represented and to feel the weight of the journey that has brought everyone here. In reflecting on that journey, I asked Ken Mayer what you wanted shared in this house. He said we would like to acknowledge Kamātua John Mahi of Nati Pamoana for his unrelenting support of this land settlement over many decades. His tireless work, wisdom and steadfast commitment helped ensure that the Whanganui land settlement was finally completed and signed on 2 May 2026. Ken continued, behind every team there are always those who spend countless hours, days, weeks, years doing the hard yards. They expect no accolades. They simply get on with the work because they believe in the kaupapa. Today we acknowledge Tracy Waitukira and Amy Simon. Your extraordinary energy, total dedication and unwavering commitment to the Whanganui Land Negotiation Trust will never be forgotten. You are both true leaders, and this settlement carries the imprint of your hard work, your integrity and your araha for your people. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to acknowledge all the negotiators, Kamātua and representatives, some of whom are with us in the gallery, and those who have passed as well. This House recognises the decades of work, the perseverance and the leadership that has brought this settlement to this point. This bill gives legislative effect to all of that mahi. It addresses and records the details of profound and long-standing breaches of te tiriti o Waitangi. It also records the values of Whanganui iwi, which are at the heart of the settlement and were consistently emphasised throughout negotiations. Toitu te kupu, toitu te mana, toitu te whenua. That commitments must be honoured, that mana must be upheld, and that land and health must endure. A clear expectation was expressed at the signing that the Crown acts in good faith and recognises these important values. As your local MP, I will continue to ensure this occurs in practice. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Whanganui District Council Mayor Andrew Tripe, he asked that I share the following with this House this morning. I offer heartfelt congratulations on the first reading of Te Reo Tukutuku. This milestone reflects more than 40 years of resolve, courage, and tū mana wainui by hapu and iwi leaders ka whiriwhiri, ka mātua, and wānau. While no settlement can undo the injustices of the past, this moment honours the truth of that history and looks to the future. Titi rau whakamuri, ko kiriri whakamua. The Council looks forward to working alongside you for the well-being of all Whanganui. Mr Speaker, this settlement is not an endpoint. It is a platform for cultural revitalisation, for economic development, and for a stronger relationship between iwi, the Crown, and the wider Whanganui community, through which we can all grow and prosper. Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui, I acknowledge your resilience, your leadership, and your unwavering commitment to your people. It was an honour to stand with you at Kawhaiki. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, tēnā koutou ngā hapu.
Lee Jackson.
Ngā hapu o Whanganui, ngā mihi kia koutou I whakarangatira mātou I tēnei wā. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou. Ngā kai whiriwhiri kia koe hoki Ken. Pai ki te kite a koe hoi, e tika ana ki te tautoko o ngā whakaaro e pāna ki ngā kai whiriwhiri. Tracy, e tika hoki ki te maumahara John Maihi. Engari tēnei wā Ken I pirangi au ki te maumahara te mahi a Tariana, me Nick Tangaro, e kore mātou e ware tā rāua mahi ki te kōkiri te kaupapa o Pākaitore. Ne? E tika ana ki te maumahara tā rāua mahi, me whakanui tā rāua mahi I ngā wā o mua. Engari e hoa ngā mihi kia koe, ko koe te negotiator I nāenei, re reke ki tō mahi I ngā wā o mua, where you were the chief troublemaker. Engari, tēnei te mihi kia koe. It's a huge comment, I think, on the treaty settlement system, Mr Speaker, that the biggest troublemaker, or one of the biggest troublemakers of the last generation is now a very polished and well-to-do chief negotiator for ngā hapu o Whanganui. I want to congratulate Ken Mayor on that. I never thought he'd make the transition, given his escapades in the past where he stopped the Te Karere program from going on television. You might not have, some of you younger ones over there would miss that. Yeah, you thought he was... I'll never forget that, Ken. And I think it's important for our people who come here to remember the mahi of your chief negotiator. And it's a comment on the system. Minister Goldsmith was talking about some of that this morning, about how we can be very adversarial and then kia whakakotahi for the kaupapa. And I mean this, Ken, we talk about, I was thinking about Tariana and Nick and all of them at Pākaitore. Oh, Tari, you were managing her all the time, as well as trying to manage yourself. And the fire they had in their eyes, in terms of who the government was. Didn't matter whether it was National or Labour, we were all sellouts. And then Tari came and joined us. But the fire in their eyes and what they went through was incredible, and where we are today is incredible. Yes, as Deb Ngārewa Peka says, there's no equity. We all know that settlement process. We don't like it. We can't stand this one and that one, and then we all come down here and we do the settlement because through the peanuts we can see hope. We see opportunity. We see our young people. Some of you in the audience today. There's an opportunity that we have seen come about. Best examples being Ngaitahu and Tainui, and I wish the same with ngā hapu o Whanganui. It is this is such a chance and such an opportunity to remind Aotearoa of the concession that Te Ao Māori makes at these moments, of the concession and the commitment that we make to Aotearoa or to New Zealand. Where you could be still protesting and asking for $500 million or whatever, Ken, and you and the team, you have conceded, you have compromised. what's the answer at the end of the road? Will the Crown continue to support ngā hapu o Whanganui? That's the question, Minister Goldsmith. Too often settlements are made and then settlements are forgotten. Too often iwi are left on their own. That's not a criticism of National, that's a criticism of the system. It's a criticism of the system. I saw Minister Andrew Little this morning, and former Minister Andrew Little, now Mayor of Wellington, and we talk about the problems that are in front of us. And so, you know, I just want to congratulate ngā hapu o Whanganui, the minister, former ministers who have put this together, but remind ourselves that there's still so much to do. And I've read some of that kōrero since the signing, and I want to mihi to all of you for committing to this. But we as a Crown, as a government, and us obviously as the future government, have to put a plan in place. Have to put a plan in place so that our people are just not left on their own. Otherwise, Ken Mair will be out there protesting yet again. And we want to keep Ken at the negotiating table. Engari, he honere nui ki te tū I mua a koutou I tēnei wā. Tēnei te mihi ki a koutou o ku whanaunga taimai nei I tēnei wā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā no tātou katoa.
Mr Speaker.
Sue's read mine.
Sorry. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It is an honour and a privilege to speak here to the first reading of the Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui Claim Settlement Bill. The bill gives effect to Heiro Tukutuku, the deed of settlement between Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui and the Crown. I want to recognise the scale of the collaboration that's taken place to get to where we are today. Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui is a collective of 17 hapu whose rohi stretches from Pipariki to Te Korowai or Awhaiti and dot along the weave of Te Awa Tupuna, the mighty Whanganui River, until it reaches the sea. The unity you've displayed under the banner of the Whanganui Land Settlement Trust has been a great source of strength for your people, and today, here in Parliament, we gather to recognise that strength, that unity, and your commitment. Haere mai ki te whare paramata. It has been nearly 10 years since the Crown recognised the mandate of the Whanganui Land Settlement Trust to negotiate the settlement, but the history of this moment dwarfs a single decade. It reflects resilience, persistence, and aroha passed down through your kaumātua, your negotiators, and your whānau over many decades. I pay tribute to the resilience and leadership of you all and your collective willingness to progress. There are many to acknowledge and thank. Ken Mair, Rick Kingi, Des Canterbury Tēnararu, Erana Mohi, Honi Tamihana, George Matthews, Kahurangi Simon, Novena Magukin, Dr. Rawiri Tiniro, Dr. Te Tiwha Pukitapu, Tina Rupuhu Green, Turama Hawera. Your lead negotiator, Ken Mair, has also asked that we make special mention of the McCaw-Lewis lawyers who stood behind the scenes throughout this long journey, especially now Judge Aidan Warren, Renika Siciliano and Carmen Mataira. Their expertise, guidance and steadfast support made an important contribution to the successful negotiation of the Whanganui land settlement, Ken said. To Minister Goldsmith, thank you for the dedication and care shown throughout this process and for continuing the work of your predecessors, the Honourable Andrew Little and Christopher Luxon. Today is the day to acknowledge you all, Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui. Your strength, your dignity and your unwavering pursuit of justice. For generations, your people have carried the weight of the Crown's actions. Today, the Crown seeks not to erase history, but to recognise it, to apologise for it, and to look to a shared future. The settlement includes both financial and cultural redress as a means of restoring your mana and enabling a new era of prosperity and self-determination. It recognises your deep and enduring connection to your awa, your whenua, and your taonga tuku iho. But more than redress itself, this is a foundation. It's a platform from which you can continue to grow on your own terms, in line with your aspirations and grounded in your tikanga. Chair of Ngāti Apa Aotearoa told me last week it's great to have another one of our neighbours moving through the settlement process. He acknowledged it's been a long road for Whanganui, and today is a day to celebrate and acknowledge that milestone. Elijah Pewey said the most important thing to consider is the opportunity this settlement creates for our region and for us all. The name of your post-settlement governance entity, Heiro Tukutuku, both represents and signifies unity. The interweaving of 17 hapu, their histories and values into a single cohesive agreement. Just as the Tukituku panel is created by the weaving together of horizontal and vertical strands to create something meaningful and enduring, something beautiful. You knew before the Crown acknowledged it, unity is a key driver of any collective endeavour. Heiro Tukutuku reflects and celebrates this kaupapa. To the people of Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi Whanganui, thank you. Thank you for your generosity in engaging with this process, for holding your mana, and for walking a path that was never easy but always principled. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Te māngai.
Shannon Halbert.
Tēnā koe te māngai o te whare. Rapua te huarahi whānui hei ara whakapiri I ngā iwi e rua I runga I te whakaaro kotahi, te hei wā mauri ora. E ngā whanaunga o Whanganui awa, tēnei te mihi kia koutou I tēnei rā nau mai haere mai, ki tēnei whare, te whare paere mata, nā reire e mihi kawana kia koutou. He mokapuna hau o Henry Dargable Bennett, nō reira I te whanaunga, tēnei te mihi kia koutou I tēnei rā, mai te kāhui maunga o Tangaroa, ko au te awa, ko te awa, ko au. Today, Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge the many people who carried this kaupapa over decades. Treaty settlement negotiations require extraordinary patience and determination. There are kaumātua who began this journey and are no longer here to witness this debate today. There are whānau who protected kōrero, evidence and whakapapa so that the history would not be forgotten. This House owes them recognition today as well, and I acknowledge the Whanganui Land Settlement Negotiation Trust for the work undertaken to bring the settlement to this point in first reading today. I want to acknowledge the negotiators, historians, researchers, legal teams and community leaders who contributed to this process. And most importantly, I want to acknowledge the uri o ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui here in te whare pāremata I tēnei rā. Your presence in the gallery gives this parliamentary debate real meaning. It's the first step where we share the history, the hurt, the pain and the past in order to move forward as peoples of Aotearoa in this country today. Because this settlement is not simply a legislative exercise, it is about our people, our whānau, the generations who carried the weight of these grievances while continuing to uphold their identity and connection to whenua. One of the strongest themes that run through this settlement is the inseparable relationship between people and the whenua. This deed repeatedly returns to whenua, to awa, wāhi tapu, and environmental stewardship of our taiao. And that reflects a worldview where land is not treated as a commodity alone, but a tipuna, an ancestor, a source of belonging, and a responsibility handed from one generation to the next for our rangatira moa popo to take forward on our behalf. Mr. Speaker, treaty settlements are part of confronting the history openly rather than pretending it did not happen. Today we acknowledge this settlement also creates an enduring relationship between ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui and Crown agencies across education, across hauora, across ngā kāinga, conservation and taiao, justice, social development. Those relationships are intended to ensure iwi are not simply consulted after decisions are made, but are recognised as enduring partners with knowledge, history and authority within their rohe. The financial and commercial redress package includes $30 million plus interest, alongside rights relating to the Crown properties, forestry land, rental proceeds and carbon credits. It provides a platform for future economic development and intergenerational investment. But it is also important to say plainly that treaty settlements are not compensation in any full sense of the word. No financial package can truly account for the generations of land loss to our whānau, language suppression, social dislocation, and economic marginalisation. E te whānau, I acknowledge your first reading today of the settlement, but I also note the challenging times that are before us. As we recognise the past, we have to acknowledge the present and challenges that we face. Nō reira e te iwi e te whare, e mihi koanu kia koutou, tēnā koutou, mauri ore kia tātou katoa.
Speaker.
David McLeod.
Tēnā koe e te Speaker. Te me tuatahi ina uri o Whanganui, na mahara mai ki tō parimata I tēnei ata. Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to stand and take the last call in this first reading of Ngā Hapu o te Iwi o Whanganui Claim Settlement Bill. And this is just before it moves on to the next stage, in which I will be privileged to be involved with, which is the Select Committee process. As the Māori Select Committee, we are privileged to be able to visit the whenua of many of the settlements that come before us at the committee itself. Just this morning, we had a mihi pakatau for a number of iwi of the Hauraki area, and these journeys that the committee goes through are quite an emotional journey. We learn of the many, many wrongdoings of the Crown, of the past itself. And I've always said to people, if you want to learn about the history of Aotearoa, the first place you can go to with confidence is going to treaty settlements and looking at the acknowledgements and the treaty and the history that is held within treaties themselves. It is said to be the true and accurate account of actually what happened, and there is absolutely the case of myself when I read the treaty settlement that we have before us here. I was born and raised in South Taranaki in the Manaia Kapuni area, and I read with interest what has occurred. And these settlements are only for a point of time. They're from the treaty up until 1992. But I look at it and it brings back memories of Motua Gardens. And I see Ken up there, and I'm sure many of your other whanaunga there were part of the, what some might say, unrest that occurred at the gardens there some time ago. And as a young person, I really didn't truly understand what that was about. But reading your settlement here, it becomes clear to me, not just what it's about, but the importance of it. And learning about pakai tore, your fishing kāinga and what that meant for you, but more so the fact of what that occasion when you were protesting was all about. The fact that with the dealings that have been spoken about by fellow members of the debating chamber today about the wrongdoings with regards to the land acquisitions by the Crown, by the New Zealand company and all that, of trying to fix those wrongs. It's a learning, and it's something that should be acknowledged, and it's something that should be fixed. When I learnt of the actions at Motua Garden, and particularly Ken, I met Ken actually personally for the first time as a young person at a squash club. And I saw him on the court there, and he was playing against my older sister. And I'm sorry to say, Ken, but I think she actually beat you on the occasion. But what I did see was the absolute competitiveness of Ken in everything that he approached. And I knew that with Ken there with the other trustees involved in a settlement here, the Crown was going to be held to account with that, and I acknowledge that. I acknowledge all of the people that have been involved with the settlement to date, and we've got Rick Barker here sitting in the House, but also the ministers, successive ministers. We've mentioned the Honourable Chris Finlayson, Honourable Andrew Little, and of course the present Minister with Honourable Paul Goldsmith. It takes time, these settlements. It takes a long time, but it's good to finally have you in the gallery here to take this next step. Yes, there will be time before we get back here to the final stage of the third reading before it goes to royal assent of when it actually becomes law. And I look forward to partaking in that process. I look forward to meeting you on your whenua during the select committee process and the submissions, and with that I commend the bill to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There will now be a series of procedural motions, and at the end of those motions, if there was the will for a waiata, that will be the time for that. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claim Settlement Bill, first reading.
The question is that Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claims Settlement Bill be considered by the Maori Affairs Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Ngā hapu o te iwi o Whanganui Claims Settlement Bill be reported to the House by 17th September 2026.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Your order. Now, if there is another settlement bill that is going to be immediately after this, so there is another iwi who are waiting outside. So thank you very much. Kia ora.
How are you?
Good. Now, this is free. They've got rid of
Good morning. We'll just encourage you to move. We'll obviously have the people that need to be in the speakers gallery here, but we just encourage everyone to go to, others to go to either side so we can have you all seated. Thank you. Good, so that door's closed. Can I ask if we were all here? I see that door's closed. I'm not sure about this door here. Are there still more people coming in? We all good? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, at this point I'm going to say welcome. I'm getting a signal that the doors are closing, so I call on Government Orders of the Day number 10 to 12.
Nati Rahiri Tumu Claim Settlement Bill, third reading. Nati Tara Tokonui Claim Settlement Bill, third reading. Nate Hei Claim Settlement Bill, third reading.
Members, in accordance with the determination of the Business Committee, the debate on the associated third reading of these bills will be up to 2 hours and 30 minutes. Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Madam Speaker, I present legislative statements on the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, the Ngāti Tara Tokonui Claim Settlement Bill and the Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill.
Those legislative statements are published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
I move that the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, the Ngāti Tara Tokanui Claim Settlement Bill and the Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill be now read a third time. Tihei Morio, ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohe e te Aotearoa, tēnei koutou, e nā rau rangatira o Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokanui, me Ngāti Hei, tēnā koutou, piki mai, kaki mai, ki te upoko o te ika, tēnei taku mihi atu kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Madam Speaker, it's great to be here to speak today for this rare occurrence of 3 treaty settlement bills being read for a third time together. It's a notable occasion as it brings a significant step closer to completing the individual settlement journeys for Ngāti Rahiri, Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokanui and Ngāti Hei. Their journeys have been long and some might say arduous, and I want to begin by acknowledging those from Ngāti Rahiri, Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokanui and Ngāti Hei who joined us in the House this morning, many who have travelled long distances to witness this occasion. I also want to acknowledge those who are tuning in on live stream or listening on their crystal sets back at home in the Coromandel. But it was wonderful to have some time together this morning to hear from your speakers and to sing together and to have some food together. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do that. And as I said this morning, to take a break from the tumult of politics and to consider some of the deeper things that we are considering during this through treaty settlements. The recognising the 3 settlements together today shows the deeply intertwined relationships of the hauraki iwi, which have been a feature of the negotiations. And these agreements will allow each group's bill to progress to third reading today, and I just want to thank everybody for being part of that. I want to pay tribute to the tupuna and kaumatua who have took the first and many subsequent steps to seek justice for Ngāti Rahiri, Tumutumu and Tara Tokanui and Ngāti Hei. Their path wasn't easy, and as I said this morning, we do acknowledge the emotions that come to the surface on a day like this when we remember those who have been part of this over many generations, but also quite recently who are no longer with us today. I want to thank the iwi for their unrelenting efforts and especially acknowledge the mandated negotiators for Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, Jill Taylor and Nicola Scott, for Ngāti Tara Tokanui, Amelia Williams and Russell Karu, and for Ngāti Hei, Peter Matai Johnson and Joe Davis. Special mention for 3 people who have played a significant role in the iwi settlement who are no longer with us. I refer to Mapuna Turner, one of the original negotiators for Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, Kiri Karu, a trustee of the Ngāti Tara Tokanui Trust who sadly passed away earlier this year, and the late Peter Tiki Johnson, the original negotiator for Ngāti Hei. Their leadership is not forgotten, and it's great sadness that they are not physically with us today. For all those who shouldered the heavy mantle of representing your iwi over the last 15 years, acted honourably and reasonably in our negotiations, we've sat across the table at the end to get this concluded. We've been pragmatic and we've got things done, and I'm grateful for that. I also want to acknowledge the previous treaty ministers, Christopher Luxon and Andrew Little, and the many government agencies representing the Crown. Also thank the Thames, Coromandel and Hauraki District Councils and the Waikato Regional Council. I also want to extend my thanks to the Honourable Rick Barker in the House today and Michael Drever, who were chief negotiators for much of the negotiations, and also to Brian Dickey, KC, the chief negotiator in the final stages, supported by the officials from Tari Whakatau. Today we recognise the Crown severely wronged each of the iwi in the years after the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. History is set out in the Waitangi Tribunal's 2006 Hauraki Inquiry report, historical record shows that successive generations of iwi raised these concerns, these grievances, and successive governments failed to deal with them. Recognition of and redress for these grievances are long overdue. In each settlement, the Crown has acknowledged historic treaty breaches and offered an apology, which will be permanently enshrined in our nation's law through the legislation passed today. For all the iwi, the Crown acknowledges its actions and omissions left their people essentially landless, eroded tribal structures and dislocated iwi members from their pa and their kainga, caused physical and spiritual hardship that remains deeply felt today. And while there are many commonalities between the three, each iwi has a unique experience. Ngāti Rahiri Tumitumi sent men to Waikato to fight Crown forces and as a result suffered the confiscation of land in which they had interests in the Tauranga area. Over the next century, Ngāti Rahiri Tumitumi, who lived on land and surrounding Te Aotearoa, Maunga, lost most of that land largely through Crown purchasing. This included land that the Crown promised to reserve for them in 1880 when Ngāti Rahiri Tumitumi entered an agreement to enable the opening of the goldfield. Over time, this deprived Ngāti Rahiri Tumitumi of their rangatiratanga over significant sites, including Te Aotearoa's mineral springs. Ngāti Tara Tokanui lost land which they had interests through the Crown's confiscation and the acquisition of Tauranga land. The Crown then used monopoly powers and advance payments to individuals to acquire collectively owned hauraki land for goldfields. In the following years, Ngāti Tara Tokanui kainga on the banks of the Waiho and Ohinumuri rivers suffered significant pollution to their water supply after the Crown authorised the discharge of mine tailings, including cyanide-treated waste into those waterways. The impact of the health on the health of Ngāti Tara Tokanui was significant. Ngāti Hei hold a unique place in New Zealand history. In November 1769, the first written account of a porphyry between Māori and Pakeha occurred when Captain Cook was invited to the fortified pa of Ngāti Hei paramount chief Tuawaka in Whitianga. He and his crew stayed 12 days. Despite this positive beginning, the impacts of Pakeha settlement affected Ngāti Hei even before the treaty was signed. A Crown investigation into pre-treaty land transactions saw Ngāti Hei lose much of their coastal whenua. From 1858, the Crown acquired significant areas of land in the Ngāti Hei rohe and without providing reserves and sometimes without consultation. This left Ngāti Hei unable to participate in the new economic opportunities and challenges emerging. These settlements acknowledge the impact of Crown actions and provide redress that recognises the traditional, cultural and spiritual associations. The Ngāti Rahiri Tumitumi address includes financial redress of $5.5 million, with the right to purchase 2 commercial redress properties. This includes the vesting of 17 individual and joint cultural redress properties. A significant 7 of the cultural vestings and significant overlay classifications are on the slopes of Te Aotearoa Maunga, the ancestral Maunga of the centre of their existence. Ngāti Tara Tokanui redress includes $6 million financial redress and the right to purchase and lease back the Crown, to the Crown the land underlying Paeroa College. 7 individual and 2 joint cultural redress properties, including Ngāti Koi domain, and the transfer of Ngāti to Ngāti Tara Tokanui. The Ngāti Hei redress includes financial redress of $8.5 million, with the ability to purchase 3 commercial properties, including Whenua Kite Station, the Ngāti Tamahera, when Ngāti Tamatera complete their settlement. It includes also the vesting of 15 individual and 2 joint cultural redress properties at the foothills of Paeroa or Toi to the beaches around Whitianga. Each iwi is also party to the Pare Hauraki Collective Redress Bill that contains shared and individual redress for Hauraki iwi. The Crown remains committed to advancing that bill once the collective deed has one more signatory. This settlement represents a commitment to reset the relationships and to start a new journey. And I heard the speeches this morning and about the need to continue that conversation and we will do that. We won't always agree, but we will continue the conversation. And I conclude by looking to the future. The passing of these bills means each of the iwi post-settlement governance entities has, or within a year will, initiate trustee elections. Moving towards governing significant assets is an exciting phase, and I wish each iwi well as they do that. Nati Rahuri Tumutumu, Nati Tara Tokanui, and Nati Hei. The Crown looks forward to working with you as you elect those you elect to represent you in the future. And Madam Speaker, I commend the Ngāti Rahuri Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokanui and Ngāti Hei claim settlement bills to the House today. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
The question is that the motion be agreed to, Honourable Jenny Anderson.
Tēnā koe te mangai o te whare. Ko te mihi tuatahi ki te atua nana nei ngā mea katoa. Ko te mihi tuaroa ki te whare etu nei tēnā koe. Apiti hono tātai hono te hunga mate ki te hunga mate. Apiti hono tātai hono te hunga ora ki te hunga ora. He mihi mahana ki a koutou, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, and Ngāti Tara Tokanui. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. To the representatives of all iwi gathered today, a warm welcome. It was a pleasure and an honour to be invited along this morning to join you to share in your speeches and waiata. So thank you for the opportunity of doing that first thing this morning. To the kaumātua, to the queer, to the historians, researchers, trustees, to the negotiators, Rick Barker and Michael Drever, those two battle-worn negotiators, thank you for your effort in bringing these three separate settlements to this point in time, three separate pieces of legislation, which I think for the first time I can remember being brought together in one final reading speech. I'd like to acknowledge that it was done with the agreement of all three iwi that we would have an extended third reading speech that brought all of these three separate negotiations together. But I would also like to note my personal view. We're always told in politics not to have a personal view, but my view is that the least we could have maybe done today is have three separate third reading speeches. You've come a long way, you've travelled a long way to be here, and the least we could do was to have three third readings for your settlements today and not have them brought together quickly. But I acknowledge that you chose to do that, and on Labour we agreed because that was your choice. These settlements are the result of people refusing to allow the experiences of your tupuna to be forgotten. They are also reminders of the responsibility that this House carries when the Crown has failed to uphold its obligations under Te Treaty o Waitangi. No settlement can ever fully compensate confiscation of land, raupatu, destruction of economic foundations, and the suppression of authority, or the grief that is passed from one generation to the next. This House has no power to undo what has happened, but settlements like these can be acknowledged by the Crown that the wrong was done, that obligations were breached, and the relationships must be rebuilt on a different foundation. Today we recognise three iwi with distinct histories, distinct experiences, and distinct relationships with their whenua and their waters. I'll start with Ngāti Hei. Ngāti Hei in Coromandel. So many New Zealanders know those places that are yours. Whitianga, Cook's Beach, Hāhei, the coastline surrounding Te Whanganui a Hei. But behind that beauty that so many New Zealanders enjoy is also the history, which maybe many New Zealanders don't know. And I hope through this legislation more will understand the history of your area. The historical account shows how Crown purchasing practices and the Native Land Court placed huge pressure on customary systems, and the fragmentation and land loss that ensued after that, that was imposed by the Crown. Like many iwi, Ngāti Hei experienced the cumulative effect of those forces that had massive impact over time. In the apology in the legislation, the Crown acknowledges that these actions breached Te Tiriti o Waitangi and caused lasting damage. Those acknowledgements are important because they place the Crown's responsibility clearly on the record, as do our speeches do in Hansard today. The cultural redress within your settlement reflects the enduring connection in areas across your area. Those sites are not simply parcels of land, they carry memory, they carry identity, whakapapa, and also obligation, which is passed through in the next generations. What stands out strongly in your settlement is the determination of Ngāti Hei to protect and restore your relationship with the natural environment. The coastline, the harbours, the waterways of Eastern Coromandel are central. They are places where generations gathered kai, maintained pa, and had a real relationship over time from one generation to the next. It's my real hope that the provisions in that settlement strengthen that and maintain that connection for many generations to come. I acknowledge all of those who contributed reaching this point, particularly the negotiators and the whānau who carried the weight of the claim on their shoulders over time. The responsibility of ensuring that history of your people was properly recorded and properly recognised. Nō reira tēnā koutou, Ngāti Hei. A Ngāti Rahiri, tumutumu. This is the point where I find it a bit jarring, right? We're just going to another iwi, but kei te pai. This settlement tells the story of an iwi whose relationship with the Crown was marked with raupatu, warfare, marginalisation, and also loss of land. We know that Crown military action across the central North Island and the long shadow of conflict cast across generations. Large areas of land around Taupō, Western Shores, were lost through Crown purchases and practices, again, of the native land courts, as occurred elsewhere across the country. For Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, those losses were profound because whenua was the foundation of that economic independence, which was sustenance, identity, and also the social well-being that came from that. The Crown's apology, which lays before us on the table in legislation, acknowledges the breaches of Te Tiriti o Waitangi and recognises that damage done through actions and omissions. Despite generations of pressure, the iwi has retained its identity, connections and determination to seek justice through this process. The cultural redress in the settlement reflects the continuing relationship of sites with those sites that are deeply significant. Those places hold stories of tupuna, of conflict, and also of survival. Treaty settlements are often discussed in financial terms, but the financial component is only a fraction of part of these agreements. What many iwi seek amongst is strong recognition of what happened, the wrongs that were done, and the experiences that were gone through. For many whānau, this process has taken decades. Some of those who began this journey are no longer with us to see this legislation pass, but we feel their presence here today. The reality should never be lost that so many have worked over the years to bring this point in time to now. And thirdly, with 2 minutes to spare, Ngāti Tara Tokanui, I would like to acknowledge you in this house today. I would like to acknowledge the historical account that is a part of your bill, that between 1865 and 1868, the Crown confiscated 290,000 acres of land around Tauranga. Ngāti Tara Tokanui interests were included in those confiscations. The Native Land Court again processed and accelerated that land loss. By 1875, 6 of the 7 owners of Aotearoa had sold their interests, and today only 2 acres of those original holdings remain in Māori ownership. Ngāti Tara Tokanui entered agreements that enabled gold mining within their rohe, yet those benefits, that economic activity, did not flow fairly back to iwi. Rental income was applied by the Crown towards repayment of advances, and at the same time, the environmental degradation and consequences was laid with iwi. Mining waste and cyanide-treated tailings were discharged into the Waiho and Ohinimuri rivers. By 1900, Crown officials themselves acknowledged that parts of the river system were polluted and unfit for human or animal consumption. The Crown apology in your settlement acknowledges the wrongs that were done, not only the land loss, but those environmental damages that were done. And the cultural redress package recognises the enduring connection of Ngāti Tara Tokonui to important sites, including Mimitu Pā and Te Pou o Te Tiki o Aroha, and others, including Ngāti Koi Domain. The settlement is also important because it recognises the relationship between the environmental damage that it's done and the cultural harm. When waterways are polluted, when wetlands disappear, and when traditional food sources are no longer available, that has a direct impact upon people. It affects identity, tikanga, and the relationship between people and place. That history deserves to be acknowledged honestly in this House. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, these three separate settlements are different in their history, different in their details, but they do share common threads. Each records the damaging impact the Crown actions undermine tino rangatiratanga, alienated whenua, weakened tribal structures, and left enduring consequences for generations to come. Despite this, we are here today, and despite this, we have three separate bills in front of us that we are passing in a third and final reading. And it is my genuine, heartfelt wishes that you take all of this and make it the best you can for the future generations of each of your three iwi. He mihi mahana kia koutou e tēnei rā, nō reira tēnā koutou, hui hui mai tātou katoa.
Madam Speaker.
Steve Abel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Kia ora koutou. Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu. Ngāti Tara Tokonui. Ngāti Hei. I wondered, Jenny, if the iwi agreed to hear it all at once because they're sick of hearing the politicians talk and want to get on with it. Which I'll interpret that being the reason behind it and respect that. I do want to give a gentle rebuke to the Minister, Madam Speaker. Minister, I feel that we can do better sometimes than cramming in so many things in the space of a morning around iwi settlements. The pōwhiri was powerful this morning, but the Māori Affairs Select Committee members had to leave before the end of the pōwhiri to attend hearings of Ngāti Rahiri mai Waikira Moana. Rupani mai Waikira Moana, and that was only a half-hour hearing at 8:30 that we had to attend, and then we had to get back to the House for Whanganui, first reading. I think we can do better than that, Minister, and give a bit more time for each of those iwi for us to afford the respect that we are here to show as part of reparations for the atrocities of the Crown and the evils of the Crown. To those of you here in the gallery, the iwi represented today, I will try to run some sort of theme in the logic. Each of these settlements is unique. Each of the experiences of your iwi are unique. But there are these chilling themes that run through the settlements. Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu. We visited your beautiful maunga in Aotearoa and understood your gifting of the maunga to the Crown with an understanding that you would still have use of your tapu springs, the hot springs there. But by the early 20th century, Māori no longer had free access to the springs or input to the management of this tapu site. I mentioned this in the second reading, but it was a chilling experience for us to see the segregation, Madam Speaker, that occurred on the flanks of Aotearoa Maunga, where the actual iwi, who are mana whenua, were given a little building down the bottom of the hill where they were only allowed to use the springs. And the main part of the springs was for tauiwi. It was segregation, undeniable, an example of segregation in our history, Madam Speaker. The Crown also regarded Māori that defended Aotearoa New Zealand from the invasion of the British in the Waikato as rebels. Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu tupuna were punished. Land was confiscated in the Tauranga district between 1865 and 1868. This is a familiar story, and now, and I mentioned this earlier today, we recognise that those who fought in the New Zealand wars in defence of Aotearoa New Zealand are heroes in our history, not rebels. What is another familiar theme is that the promise of what would be attained by iwi Māori in the relationship with settlers very rarely came to fruition. The land that was taken was exploited in ways that invariably destroyed the cultural and the economic base of iwi Māori. In the case of Ngāti Tara Tokanui, these examples are glaring as well. There's a theme across all three iwi of gold mining, Madam Speaker, and the negative effect of gold mining. There was no income from the gold mining that occurred in Tara Tokanui's rohe. Between 1877 and 1882, the monopoly powers claimed by the Crown meant that Māori had no option but to alienate their land to private parties if they needed to sell it. And as Ginny Anderson pointed out, the discharge of the mine tailings in the Waiho and the Ohini led to cyanide poisoning of those wai. 300 people needed an alternative water supply. We're still doing this mining, Madam Speaker. Can you believe it? Mining is still happening in the Hauraki district. It still produces cyanide. The other striking thing which we see across Hauraki is the destruction of the magnificent rākau, the incredible forests, the kaihakatea wetland forests that grew massive buttress trees. The tallest trees that have ever stood in Aotearoa, New Zealand were in the Hauraki district. They were cleared, they were burned, the wetlands were drained, and here in the bill is recognised that the draining of the Hauraki plains, which were a significant source of food and other resources for Ngāti Tara Tokanui in the early 1900s, when the Crown established the Hauraki Plains drainage scheme to drain that land and develop it for farming. By the end of this whole process, in 1896, there was only 232 acres remaining as Māori freehold land. So again, the promise of the benefits of the relationship with the colonisers turned out to be ashes in the hands of the iwi. Ngāti hei. Likewise, the Crown acknowledges that the degradation of the environment arising from gold mining, gum digging, flax milling, commercial fishing, deforestation, associated burn-off, siltation, introduced weeds and pests, farm runoff and other pollution has been a source of distress and grievance to Ngāti hei. The Crown further acknowledges that this greatly harmed traditional sources of kai, and the Ngāti hei actively protested environmental damage in their rohe. Ngā mihi, kia ora, you who defend te taio. There is another phrase in the Ngāti hei settlement which I want to finish on, Madam Speaker. The Crown acknowledges the harm endured by many Ngāti hei tamariki from decades of Crown policies that strongly discouraged the use of te reo Māori in schools. Ngāti Hei might have been the relationship between the Crown and Ngāti Hei might have been one of mutual advantage. Mutual advantage was the promise of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, Madam Speaker. The promise of Te Tiriti was mutual respect and mutual advantage. Māori welcomed the opportunity for cultural and economic exchange in a binding relationship, and their goodwill was exploited and betrayed, Madam Speaker. The treaty is forever. It is not something that can ever be settled. It is more than merely a contract, it is a covenant. And this is a settlement, Madam Speaker, but the relationship between the Crown and Te Iwi Māori is a living relationship. And we must lean into that principle that there might have been mutual advantage. And there must be mutual advantage and mutual respect in the relationship from here onwards. That is the promise of these settlements. That is the commitment that we should be making as the Crown, Minister and colleagues of the House. Because there can be no thriving in Aotearoa, New Zealand, if there is not justice for Māori. There can be no cohesion and no unity if we do not uphold that promise of our founding agreement, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which recognises the tino rangatiratanga of iwi Māori. We commend these three settlements to the House today, Madam Speaker. Kia ora.
Cameron Luxon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tēnā koutou I ngā mana whenua o Hauraki, roa ko Coromandel, I ngā uri o Nati Rahere Tumutumu, o Ngāti Tara Tokanui, me Ngāti Hei. Nau mai, haere mai ki tēnei whare, tēnā koutou katoa. A triplet of settlement bills is before the House today, Madam Speaker. The Ngāti Rahere Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, the Ngāti Tara Tokanui Claim Settlement Bill, and the Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill, represent an immensely important step in acknowledging historical injustices and restoring the relationship between the Crown and these iwi of Hauraki and Eastern Coromandel. I thank you, you three triplets, if I can say that, to agree to read these bills together, as has been agreed by every party of this House. I have been able to speak on the three bills separately at previous stages, and I'm grateful to contribute to this special third reading of the three settlement bills together. These bills represent an important moment for each of these iwi and for the Crown, which we are speaking for here in the House. They are a result of many years of work, negotiations, research, perseverance by whānau, kaumātua, historians, negotiators, and everybody who has carried this, as we've heard, for generations. At the centre of these settlements is a simple truth. The Crown failed in its obligations under the treaty, and each of these settlements have parts in there where the historical account is put down importantly for posterity, for New Zealanders to always be able to see the apology as well as what we can make in the form of redress. For Ngāti Tara Tokanui, the Crown itself acknowledges that its actions severely undermined the well-being of the iwi. Severely. It eroded tribal structures and resulted in the loss of most of the ancestral lands. For Ngāti Rahere Tumutumu, whose rohe extends across Te Aroha, the Kaimai Range, the Hauraki Plains and the Coromandel Peninsula, this settlement recognises the enduring impact of confiscation, of swindling and Crown purchasing, of mining activity on the iwi and its people and the whenua. And for Ngāti Hei, whose deep connection to the Eastern Coromandel and all of those beaches and heads stretch back many generations, this bill gives legislative effect to the deed of settlement first signed in 2017 and records acknowledges and apologies made by the Crown And may I take a second to congratulate you on your involvement in the fisheries in that area at the moment. There is no settlement which can fully compensate for the loss suffered. No financial redress can ever truly measure the damage caused by the erosion of language, identity, economic opportunity, and the intergenerational connection that has been attacked. But settlements matter because they are an acknowledgement that the Crown failed to uphold the promises, but importantly, these bills are not just about addressing the past. They are about the future. They are about creating a platform for development, cultural revitalisation, and an opportunity for generations to come, generations of Kiwis to live together. These settlements, which have been worked on for so long, they span many generations. The work began on this journey a long time ago, and many did not get to see the conclusion, but many are represented by the uri here in the House. It is also important to recognise that these settlements reflect the endurance and resilience of these iwi. Despite the injustices, despite land loss and marginalisation, these three iwi have retained their identity, whakapapa, tikanga and connection to their rohi. These three bills, read together in this unique way, they are part of New Zealand's ongoing treaty settlement process, a process that, while imperfect, remains an important mechanism for confronting our history honestly and building a strong future together. As members of this House, we have a responsibility not only to settle historic grievances, but to make sure future generations inherit a country where the mistakes of the past are neither forgotten nor repeated, but as I say, Madam Speaker, are a foundation to make our country stronger for every citizen that calls this place their home. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Jenny Marcroft.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First in support of the Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, the Ngāti Tara Tokunui Claim Settlement Bill, as well as the Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill. Madam Speaker, it is a privilege and an honour to stand here today in this House and speak to these three treaty settlement bills. Just acknowledging the Minister for bringing these bills in for a landing today in their third and final reading, and he noted that it is in fact a notable occasion because of those deeply intertwined relationships across this particular area, the agreement to have these three final readings read here in the House today. So I'd like to send my warmest greetings and that of my leader, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, as well as Mātua Shane, to the whānau of Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokunui, as well as the whānau of Ngāti Hei, who are here in the House today. Madam Speaker, it's always with some trepidation that I speak to these bills because it is so impactful when you read the historical accounts set inside each and every treaty settlement bill. And you'd have to be a real cold fish if you didn't get moved by what you read in the historical accounts. And so I think it's very important for every member of Parliament to take the time to read about what has happened in our past. Madam Speaker, it is great how we can come together as a Parliament from all political parties and speak in unison as we move these bills forward, albeit making note that Steve Abel did give the Minister a bit of a growling, but together in the House we are combined in our kaupapa today. So I would like to extend my greetings to the whānau of Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu who've travelled here to witness this moment. As I mentioned, it is an honour to stand before you as we move the Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill in for its final reading. This is the final legislative milestone of a 15-year journey, but actually just that last part is 15 years because we're in the House today to witness a moment of justice that has been over a century in the making. The history we acknowledge today is one of profound loss. Through the Crown's historical actions, unjust land laws and the confiscation of land, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu were rendered virtually landless. And that was not just a loss of soil, but a severing of the physical connection to their maunga te aroha and as well their ancestral identity. A financial redress package of $5.5 million, the Ngāti Tumutumu Trust will have the resources now to invest in its people. But as we know, the heart of any settlement actually isn't just about the pūtea, it's about the return of the land. That settlement, the heart of that settlement lies in the land. During the Select Committee stage, the submissions underscored that while financial redress, of course, is necessary, it's the return of the land that causes the healing. So I wish for all of those in your iwi that healing process has begun. This bill gives effect to the return of 17 sites of immense cultural significance, and we also acknowledge the commercial redress, including the land at Te Aroha College, ensuring that iwi has a stake in the infrastructure of their own rohe. And while this bill marks the final legal resolution of these historical claims, submitters during the Select Committee stage also noted that it is a beginning. It's a new way forward for the people of Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu. Madam Speaker, I now turn to Ngāti Tara Tokanui Claims Settlement Bill. And I'd just like to make a note that while we're reading these speeches together, while there is a saying in my whānau, same but different, I want to speak individually to each of these because of the differences. While there is some collective historical grievance, I feel that it's what I feel is important for me to do is to speak individually to these bills. Ngāti Tara Tokanui, today also acknowledging a significant milestone for you. The passage of this claim settlement bill is not just a legislative formality, it is a profound act of recognition, a very long overdue apology and a commitment to a shared future. And once again, your historical reading and the account in this bill makes for actually very sombre reading. It details a history where the Crown's actions and its failures to act, just as importantly, had a devastating impact on the people of Ngāti Tara Tokanui. So to the whānau of Ngāti Tara Tokanui, this settlement cannot undo the decades of struggle, nor can it replace the tūpuna who did not live to see this day. However, it does offer a new beginning. It's a new way forward, where the mamae of the past can be acknowledged, but not embedded into the very DNA of the generations to come. No settlement, and we all in this House can acknowledge that, will ever fully compensate for the magnitude of loss. This package, though, does provide a foundation for the future. There's a $6 million redress package, which will provide a foundation for economic self-determination, and also the vesting of 7 sites of cultural significance, including the Ngāti Koi domain, stewardship of ancestral lands, finally returned to their rightful kaitiaki. Mr Speaker, I'd like to speak now to Ngāti Hei and their Claims Settlement Bill in its third and final reading, also today marking the culmination of a journey that has spanned generations. It's a day of profound significance, not just for Ngāti Hei, but for all of New Zealand. I want to acknowledge the negotiators, the kaumātua and the whānau of Ngāti Hei have worked tirelessly for decades to reach this point. Many who began this journey no longer with us, but their spirit and their dedication are woven into the fabric of this settlement. Your perseverance has ensured that the voices of your ancestors have been heard and that the rights of your mokopuna are being secured. As we gather in this House to finalise this settlement, we acknowledge a history of resilience, a struggle for justice, and a commitment to a shared future. And this bill, Mr Speaker, based on the deed of settlement which was signed in 2017, represents our collective effort to address these historical wrongs. It's not a complete remedy for the past, however. No legislation could ever truly undo the pain of loss, but it is a vital step towards reconciliation and restorative justice. The historical record is clear, Mr Speaker. Ngāti Hei suffered the loss of their ancestral lands, the erosion of their traditional authority, and the marginalisation of their culture and identity. And these were not just historical events, They were deep wounds that have impacted the social, economic and spiritual well-being of Ngāti Hei for over a century. The redress provided in this bill, both cultural and financial, is a testament to the endurance of Ngāti Hei. The vesting of culturally significant sites, the statutory acknowledgements and the financial resources are more than just legal transfers, they are tools for the future. They provide a foundation for Ngāti Hei to revitalise their culture, strengthen their communities and pursue their own economic aspiration on their own terms. So in closing, Madam Speaker, let us honour the past, celebrate this milestone and look forward with hope to the future that Ngāti Hei will build. Mr Speaker, I commend the Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill, the Ngāti Tara Tukunui Claim Settlement Bill and the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutu Claim Settlement Bill to the House.
Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark. Not sure, maybe get closer to the
Tēnā
microphone.
rā koe, Speaker.
Great point.
A toi a tainui tapatu ki te moana māwai e tō, mā tātou e tō. Mā Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu e tō, mā Ngāti Hei e tō, mā Tara Tukunui e tō. Nau mai ki tō koutou whare i tēnei rangi. Nau mai ki te whare paremata, nā koutou tēnei rangi. Wai hoki ngā rūruhi koroheke o koutou mate i whakawhārikihia i te ata tonu nei ki te pōwhiri. Nā koutou te atiawa te reo pōwhiri ki a mātou o tainui waka, wai hoki i a hauraki whānui i tēnei ata. Nei rā te reo whā, nei rā te reo mihi. Kua rā kia hau i te papa o te whenua, kua kite a hau i ngā whetū e tūtaki tahi ana, ko matari ki te kairuri, kua titahi kei te taumata o te mangaroa. A kei tō tātou arikinui kuini ngā wai hono i te pō, koe e whakakanohi a tātou te iwi Māori ki inarangi i tēnei wā tonu, ki ngā kāhui ariki o reira, rire hau, pai mārire. Pai mārire. Ko te whakahirahiratanga o tēnei rangi, koe nei ngā kreme, e tihi o ngā kreme whakamutunga o te waka o tainui. Katahi anō, i ngā tautata nei i whakanui te toru te koutou o mātou i roto o ngā uri o te raupatu, i roto i ngā kreme raupatu. Nā reira, tangihia rā ngā mate. Tangihia rā ngā mate, kauea mai ki konei ki te whare o te raiona, ki te kāwanatanga, me ngā uri o te raupatu. Tēnā rā koe e te pika. Mr Speaker, settlement bills often arrive in this House wrapped in language of closure and resolution. But let us be honest, in this House today, there is no settlement that can truly compensate for what was taken from our people. No settlement can restore generations lost to land alienation. No financial quantum can fully heal the mamai of displacement from ancestral whenua. No Crown apology can undo the erosion of mana motuhake, the disruption of whakapapa relationships, or the intergenerational harm inflicted through decades of Crown breaches of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Across all three of these settlements, we see the same patterns repeated. The erosion of whenua, the undermining of tribal authority, the disruption of mātauranga Māori and passing down of tikanga between generations. And these are not simply historical grievances locked away in the past. These impacts continue to be lived realities for our people today. For the iwi of Hauraki, especially these histories are deeply connected to whenua and wai. For Ngāti Tara Tokanui, the Crown's pursuit of extraction came at the enormous cost to the people and to the environment. The Waihau and Ohinemuri rivers, the very pepeha that we try to protect today in even the fast-track legislation bills, carry the burden of mining, pollution and environmental erosion, while the iwi carried the burden of loss. And for Māori, environmental destruction is never simply environmental destruction. When the wai is harmed, the people are harmed. When the whenua is stripped and exploited, something within the identity of the people is also impacted, because our relationship to the whenua and wai is not symbolic, it is ancestral. For Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, te aroha. From the summit of the Maunga to the Waihai River is a wāhi tapu, puke kākari ki kaitahi, the place where the kākā parrots flocked to feed, symbolic of the abundance of food and resources the Maunga supplied. Te tatau ki hauraki whānui, of the doorways to hauraki widespread. The mountain has two names, one for each of its two peaks, Te Aroha Kiuta, Te Aroha Ātai, meaning love for the land and love for the sea, the names originating in Hawaii. The hot springs at Te Aroha, because they flow from the heart of the Maunga, are also part of the mountain, symbolising the giving, caring nature of the Maunga and the ancestors of Ngā Tirahiri Tumutumu. The environmental damage done to your sacred maunga as a result of mining has eroded your capacity to fulfil your kaitiaki responsibilities and create a deep mamai. For Ngāti Hei, the relationship to te tamahine to tikapa moana, to te whanganui a hei, remains central to who they are as a people. Those places are not tourist destinations. They are not commercial brands. They are ancestral landscape layered with whakapapa, tikanga, wāhi tapu and memory. And when ancestral names are restored through settlements like this, something powerful occurs. The ancestor returns visibly to the landscapes, the stories return, the people return, public memory begins to shift. Te manawa nui o ngā iwi, but despite everything that was taken, despite every crown breach, despite generations of marginalisation and disposition, our people endured. That is the story sitting beneath each of these bills. The endurance of iwi who never relinquished their identity, who never surrendered their obligations as kaitiaki, who maintained ahika, whakapaparea o tikanga and connection. I te rangi nei ka whakamaumaharatia I ngā whakareanga kua tae mai I mua I a koutou. A lot of people die for settlements to get across the line. Recently at the pōwhiri this morning, I talked about some of our own stalwarts who championed the Waikato Tainui settlements such as Shane Solomon, and many of the iwi brought today have brought in their loved ones who never got to see this day. So e whakamanawa ana e maumaharatia ana I o koutou mate. Those who petitioned, those who travelled, those who sat through hearings, those who documented histories, those who relieved painful stories over and over again, simply so the truth would finally be placed on the record of this nation. Because the settlement process itself asks a great deal of our people. It requires whānau to revisit histories of trauma in order to seek justice. It requires us to be confrontational with each other. That is a hard part, sometimes not the crown part, but with ourselves as hapu, and it's those mamai where it's divide and conquer strategies. That emotional labour must be acknowledged in this house today. Kaore anō kua o te ngā mahi. And while we support these settlements wholeheartedly, we also say clearly that settlements are not an endpoint of justice. They do not extinguish Crown obligations under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Te Tiriti is not confined to historical settlements, processes. Te Tiriti is a living document. So hei tirohanga whakamua, today we acknowledge the pain that made these settlements necessary, but we also acknowledge the strength, the resilience and the vision of the iwi themselves. Ngāti Taratokanui, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, nā koutou tēnei rā. Whakanui tō koutou rā I tēnei rangi ki tēnei papa o te whareparemata. To your tupuna who carried these grievances before you, and to your mokopuna who will inherit the outcomes of your perseverance, may these settlements support the rebuilding of your aspirations. Māku anō tōku nei whare e hanga, e kore tēnei whakaoranga e huri ki tua o ku mokopuna, a nei ko ngā tongi kura a kingi tāwhao kia mātou. May they strengthen the connection of your future generations to whenua, wai and moana, and may they contribute towards a future where the mana of iwi is restored. Me te mea anō hoki kare anō kua oti ngā kreme katoa o Hauraki. I look forward to the day where we see Ngāti Pawa, ngā hapu maha o Hauraki whānui, kua tai mai ki roto nei, ki te whare paremata. Nō reira, tūrau hoa ki rire rire hau, pai mārire.
The Honourable Marama Davidson.
Tēnei kamihi atu ki runga i ngā āhuatanga, I whai wāhi koutou, ki te hara mai ki tēnei o ngā pāremata. Ko tēnei haerenga e hara I te haerenga māma, e hara I te haerenga ngāwari, engari he haerenga mokopuna, he haerenga rangatira, anō reira tēnā koutou, kia ora mātātou katoa. Tēnei o te tai tokirau o hokianga o te raroa Ngāpuhi, o te tai rāwhiti hoki o Ngāti Porau, o Waikato Tainui o Ngāti Tahinga, e mihi kauana kia koutou. Kia ora rā. I last had the honour of speaking to a treaty claim settlement bill back in 2024. And so today we had a last minute and late notice opportunity for an extra 10 minutes for us to be able to acknowledge this incredible day and achievement for Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu, for Ngāti Taratokanui, for Ngāti Hei. It's an opportunity that we wouldn't normally have had, and yes, it was late notice, but we decided to take the opportunity, and so that is why I find myself here with the privilege of being able to speak to acknowledge your mahi, your mokopuna, your tupuna, your whakapapa, your maunga, your awa, your mahi. And the reason why it has been some years since I have spoken on Treaty Claim Settlements Bill is because I am proud that we have now got more of us. It doesn't just depend on me to be able to uphold te tiriti as te Pāti Kākariki. Not the least my colleague Steve Abel, our tangata tiriti spokesperson, and Huhana Linden, our Māori Affairs and Māori Development leader. And you will hear from all of us today, and if we can please, similar to these bills, take all of our speeches together as well, because there is absolutely no way that any one of our speeches can do the full justice to squashing three. And I understand that with your generosity you have agreed also to having these bills taken together and you want to get on with the mahi, and I respect and honour that. I therefore am going to do my best to acknowledge each of you all in your own rights, while remembering that you also have intergenerational connections, stories and relationships. Okay, so I actually decided that I would try and use my short time that I had to prepare to acknowledge the actual bills and to focus on the injustices, because Aotearoa, all of our generations, need to fully understand just how generous our iwi and hapu always have been when it comes to settling claims, and understand that these claims and the settlements and the redress in them, as all of our colleagues have said, go absolutely no way to the actual injustice, but provide an important platform, an important point for continuing the mahi mokopuna work that you all are doing. And I earlier in the readings today did happen to hear an actual mokopuna singing their tangi out to the House, and I say, no mai, tangi mai, whakatau mai mokopuna, this is your Parliament and you belong here, and so does your tangi. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to start, okay, got my orders of paper in the order that they're in. I'm going to start with Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill, and my colleague is having a chuckle because we've just got to go with it. I want to highlight that some of the injustices that Ngāti Hei have faced are about the loss of much of their coastal whenua in some, I suppose, quite shady and unclear trades that were happening around the 1830s. And then we had Crown purchasing, and this happened throughout settlements and certainly across these settlements, where the Crown processes of acquiring land, of stealing land, of buying land were often done in a way to pit other iwi and hapu against each other. And so Crown purchase of ahuahu from other hauraki iwi without evidence that Ngāti Hei were actually consulted on that purchase. There was permanent whenua alienation from Ngāti Hei. There was also public works alienation, where, for example, and I think I'll go back to quickly mention that the history of extractive industry in Ngāti Hei Rohe, including kauri logging, kauri gum digging, and then continuing on to, and the damage that that did to their precious whakapapa environment and the impacts and the grievance that that holds. Continuing to particular public works grievance, and I want to acknowledge my colleague Huhana Linden again for continuing to hold a public works member bill that would just say no more land alienation for the little bit of land that Māori have left through public works acquisition. That is a whakapapa that continued from Catherine Delahunty actually, and that I was also proud to hold and push. So public works acquisition injustice also for Ngāti Hei, which had many impacts, including the separation of Ngāti Hei being left virtually landless, the socio-economic deprivation, the discouragement of te reo. Discouragement is a word, I suppose. It was violent. The discouragement of te reo across our generations was in fact a violent discouragement. So with that injustice then, there is redress. There is some financial and commercial redress. There is some returning of sites of cultural significance to Ngāti Hei. And there are agreements and protocols to have an actual relationship and working properly together. We know, I'm going to say this after every single iwi hapu, it's good, it's positive, I know you will do the best with it, Ngāti Hei, and we know it's generous for Ngāti Hei to enable the Crown to have this type of redress in this case. Kia kaha koutou, ngā mihi aroha kia koutou. Kei konei a Ngāti Tara, kei konei koutou o Ngāti Tara. I want to again talk about the injustices for Ngāti Tara, looking at the clock, the goldfields at Ohinemuri, the accumulated debts through having to try and chase up the injustices, which then led to owners being forced to sell off land. Tara Tokanui, Ngāti Tara Tokanui did not receive any income from gold mining in their rohe. The further Crown purchases, the further Crown alienation, the discharging of mine tailings into the Waiho and Ohinemuri rivers, tupuna awa, and the disregard for the whakapapa of Ngāti Tara Tokanui. And the wetlands, the wetland areas of the Hauraki Plains, the drainage for farmland to develop it into farming, and once again, public works acquisition in relation to the drainage scheme, where again it left a tiny bit of freehold land today. So Ngāti Tara Tokanui, I acknowledge the years, the generations of work, the people, as with all of these claims, who are no longer here to celebrate their mahi and the mahi to come for future generations. Kei konei koutou, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, kei konei koutou, kia ora mai. I wanted to acknowledge the Crown-initiated war in the Waikato with armed forces crossing the Mangatawhiri Stream. The confiscation punishment that was often an injustice of Crown for anyone standing for their whenua, for their hapu and iwi, for their mokopuna. I want to acknowledge that deeds were supposed to provide for reserves, and those reserves were not provided for. I want to acknowledge the Crown purchasing the ongoing shady receipts of payments, and once again, the land gifted by iwi to the Crown in order to have ongoing rights to the springs, but actually those ongoing rights, which were supposed to be part of the deal, no longer remained as to today. So again, once again, injustice, hard mahi done by your people, your generations, arriving to the announcement and a starting point from today. But overall, e te iwi, once again, we face a grown-up conversation, I would hope, of the place of Te Ao Māori and iwi and hapu across our country, and what can happen when we call for accountability. As in actual fact, we see iwi and hapu generosity once again. But we also see iwi and hapu working hard to uphold the integrity of te taiao, our living systems, to uphold the living conditions and social justice and economic justice for wanting to see not just Māori do well, but all of our communities across Aotearoa do well. To acknowledge that working together with Crown, instead of Crown working over the top of our communities, actually leads to benefits for all of us. And in today's celebrations and joyous recognition of the work that you have done and the travel that you have committed, I acknowledge you all. It was a privilege to be able to come back to this house to speak to all of your settlement claims today. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Mr. Speaker, I want to join with others from across the House in welcoming representatives to this place, to this Parliament, to the People's House, who have travelled a long way today to be here for what in some aspects is a conclusion, but in reality not actually a conclusion, more of a beginning than an ending, but a marker along the way for three iwi that have three different pathways to being here in this place today. Three different iwi with their own histories, their own burdens, their own challenges, their own debate and their own internal anguish that has gone on over the years to get us to this point today. So, how did we get here and where are we going? Well, Mr. Speaker, earlier this morning at the Pōwhiri, I had an opportunity, thanks to the gracious endeavours of my colleague Tama Potaka, to speak briefly at the Pōwhiri, and I was reflecting on the broader picture of what treaty settlements mean and how they came to be. And I reminded those folk at the Pōwhiri this morning that late last year I had attended the funeral of Jim Bolger, former Prime Minister. And it was Jim Bolger who, along with Doug Graham and others, who embarked upon this process without really knowing quite what it would do, how it would be formed, what shape it would take, or how it would be manifested. But they were, with their colleagues, sometimes under intense scrutiny, criticism and challenge from within their own ranks, determined to embark upon a process to do what Jim Bolger said was the right thing, to do the right thing. And they were brave. And so how have we ended up here all those years later, debating in this House the third reading of three important pieces of legislation relevant to three iwi in the area that I have the honour and privilege to represent in this Parliament, across the Coromandel, the Hauraki, through to Te Araha and down into the Bay of Plenty. Important, beautiful parts of the country, but not without their challenges. And as we mark today the constitutional, the legal, the parliamentary process that we are finishing here, I'm very conscious of what is yet to come. It was at Wharekahau in November 1769, as the Minister said earlier in his presentation, that James Cook had the first Pōwhiri with Ngāti Hei. And that was of itself remarkable because, on a personal note, that's where my great-grandparents came to at Kuatunu, just a beach or two around from Wharekahau. And those members of my extended family are still resident there, my roots are still there, and that shared land, that shared whenua, is part very much of my personal story and family, as well as it is the iwi of Ngāti Hei. And so we have a journey to gather and to traverse together from that first contact in November 1769 to today, to the vision and the hope and the aspiration that was thought through by Jim Bolger and his colleagues back in the day. So after hours, days, months, years of negotiation, of meetings, of interminable hours spent to get to this point, we have arrived today. And I want to congratulate you, to those that have gone before and who are not with us today, on that input of dedication and commitment to do the right thing, to do the right thing. Now, does it mean for 1 minute that everything is going to be sweet and dandy tomorrow? Does it mean that everything is going to be sweetness and light? Does it mean that every issue will be resolved and that there will be nirvana across the rohi? Probably not, but it's a step along the way. It's a step along the way for 3 important iwi who are going to, I think, use this process to move forward, not just for themselves, not just for us who are here today in this place and our generation, but for the generations that we are privileged to guide a pathway for their futures. And my hope and aspiration is that as long as I have an opportunity to be a representative in this place, that I and my colleagues will continue to walk that pathway with people who want to engage positively and for the future, not only of their own iwi, their own whānau, but also for the future of our nation and its collective well-being. And so, Mr. Speaker, later today, when we have completed this process, we've had the vote, and it'll be happening, you'll be pleased to know, mercifully soon, we will then have a document, 3 separate bills that will go to the Governor-General. And the Governor-General will, on behalf of King Charles III, complete the Crown's obligations in terms of this process, this legislative, parliamentary, legal process. And it's that relationship with the Crown that is important and should not be forgotten today. The Minister and the Crown have apologised. That is of itself significant and worthy of a starting point for future discussions, because there are many issues that remain unresolved. There are many debates still yet to be had. There are many, many issues that we must collectively unite to find. So, Mr. Speaker, others have traversed the detail, the specific detail of each of the redress, the compensation, the financial, the cultural, the land. I'm not going to traverse that again, but I do want to commend these 3 pieces of legislation to the House and to wish those of you that have travelled here today well, to thank you for making the time, taking the effort, and for your sincerity and commitment to this process. Kia ora, travel well.
Honourable Willie Jackson.
Kia koutou Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Tara Tokonui, me Ngāti Hei. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou, I whakarangatira a mātou I tēnei wā. He hōnari nui ki te mihi kia koutou, he mōhi ahau, he rā nunui, he rā whakahirira, mō tātou katoa. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou. Aha ko he rereke tēnei tikanga, ngā piri e toru, ko te me nui kei ko nei, koina te me nui I tēnei wā. Aha ko e whakaeke hea ana te Māori I a wiki e tēnei kawanatanga, aha ko e whakapare hako I a wiki e tēnei kawanatanga, I te iti raua, kai te whakanui tonu rātou I ēnei whakataunga. Koina te me nui pēa I tēnei wā. E tika kia whakakotahi mō te kaupapa, aha ko tino hoha, tino riri te ao Māori I tēnei kawanatanga I tēnei wā. Koina te me nui I tēnei wā. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, tātou katoa, tai mai nei, ki te tautoko, ki te whakanui tēnei kaupapa. Good to see everyone here and hear the challenges this morning at our pōhiri. I was thinking back to when Ngāi Te Rangi came down here, and we actually, it was very, very, very close to a bit of a whawhai on the forecourt out here. Such were the emotions of our people. And it was a reminder, I'll never forget that day. Andrew Little was the minister, And we were challenged as a government in terms of our handling of the kaupapa, in terms of obviously tribes of Hauraki. Jan Tanetti's here, she was minister at the time, and out there giving tautoko to the kaupapa, and MPs from all sides. It was a reminder, as it was a reminder this morning, as how difficult this process is. Incredibly complex, so many compromises, so many concessions. And on that day, I was wondering, geez, and I'm serious, I thought we were close to violence on the forecourt. Violence on the forecourt, eh, Marama? Would have been terrible, but it was that close. And I put myself in the other side's, I can understand that. I'm not condoning violence, but that's what our process does to us. And I've been having good kōrero with the negotiator over here, Rick Barker, is an old friend and former Labour Party minister, as we were going through it. And I mean, how do you navigate your way through things? And it was interesting when Jim Bolger and Doug Graham were going through stuff, and Rick was explaining you have the overlapping claims, you have the interlapping claims, and then the best way through that, Doug Graham and Jim Bolger were saying was, well, we must have a collective. Not sure if that was the best way, but here we are today. And then you have to traverse your way through a system. So, we have Tamati Kruger, who's not exactly the favourite of Tuhoi, is he? But I mean, he's a brilliant man, Tamati, brilliant man. And then he tries to help ministers like Minister Goldsmith and formerly Minister Finlayson and Minister Little. And here you have to, in many ways within the system, you have to choose between winners and losers. And people who miss out. And so I was going over it with Rick, and then Tamati talks about, well, you have to break things down into different areas in terms of who has the mana. So he says, first of all, you have areas where iwi are dominant. Secondly, you have areas where iwi have influence. And then thirdly, you have areas where iwi have interests. And if that helps the people, I'm not sure. Certainly helped Tamati anyway, didn't it? So, he's working his way in terms of Tuhoi, obviously. But this is the complicated system and process we have. But I was listening to our man Koro over there. Kei konei Koro tonu? Kia ora e hoa. Pai tō kōrero I tēnei ata. E tika ana ki te wero atu ki a mata. Tika ana, mihi ana ki a koe e hoa. And we had our challenges this morning to we have to come and kōrero e pāna ki ngā piki me ngā heke, koro, because as has been said 100 times by members in this house, the system is so almost against our people, but our people find a way through it. Putting iwi against iwi, hapu against hapu, whanaunga against whanaunga, and never more exemplified than that day we had out in the forecourt. So it's a tribute to former ministers and this minister, and I don't mind to give him congratulations, even though he's not been particularly good on other kaupapa, as you all know, and even though he wants to get rid of the treaty references and hammering Aotearoa, and he's generally confused about a lot of kaupapa Māori at the moment. But apart from that, he's done a good job with this kaupapa, and I want to mihi to him today, and I want to mihi to our people, because we find our way through, even though we're ready with the government, we come together I tēnei wā kia tūtuki ngā moe a me ngā hea me ngā tūmanako, Koina te me nui I tēnei wā. So we're able to put the current issues aside where we want to deal to this government, and kia whakakotahi for the kaupapa I tēnei wā. So congratulations to all the whānau, all the hapu, and all the iwi have come today. I won't go through the I won't go through all the intricacies of it because that's already been traversed, but I just think that it's when I think back of the history and I think of what the ministers have had to work through, and people like our negotiators, Rick over here, Rick Barker and Mike Drever, who might still be here, it really is a tribute to this country that we're able to find resolution through, even though we can be angry at each other, we can be furious in terms of history, we've got all the hapu iwi stuff, we've got the change of governments, but it's a tribute to our people and to this country that we're able to get there in the end. And as Marama Davidson said, the country owes Māori. We are owed in terms of the way we've compromised, the way we've said, well, yes, we'll take the pittance, we'll subsidise the country, we'll do a treaty settlement process at, I don't know what it is at Minister Goldsmith, maybe it's 1.5 billion, maybe 2 billion now, not too bad an amount when you consider the concessions from iwi all around the country. And so that's how desperate we are in terms of getting on with things. And so the challenges remain for our Hauraki collective and the different hapu, different iwi, to find a way to utilise the pūtea, which does not at all compensate for the loss, but find a way to fulfil all the dreams, the hopes, the aspirations within the system that we have now. So I always look forward to that. I am so pleased that you've been able to whakakotahi for this. Hauraki iwi, of course, has a challenge because, again, we know that there's the huge iwi who get all the kudos, who get all the support, who get all the publicity. That's Tainui and Ngaitahu and probably Ngāti Whātua. But it's like iwi like the three groups we've talked about today who have to make their mark now. So I wish you well. I wish you well and congratulate you. And I also thank you, Koro and others, for the challenges laid down today, rightful challenges that we in Labour will look forward to taking up. Nō reira, honere nui ki te kōrero ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, a tēnā no tātou katoa.
Ki Nati raheri tumutumu, ki Ngāta tara tokunui, ki Ngāti hei. Tēnā koutou. Nōku te tino maringa nui, te tū ki tō koutou tirohanga. Ka whakanui tō koutou haerenga, tō koutou manawa nui ki tēnei rā. Maha nā whainga o te tūkanga o te karemi. Akene pēr te whainga tuatahi, te whakapūāwai o te reo Māori, e puta no te motu nei. Nā reira, ka kōrero au anake i te reo Māori, i tēnei ata, manawa nui mai.
Kia ora.
Huri oku whakaaro ki te mihi whakatau i tēnei ata, ina koa ki te kōrero i pāniki tō kai kōrero tuarua. Pēnei, kei korā te kōrero, kei konei te hoha, te raruraru. Kei runga te kōrero, kei raro te hoha. Ia au e whakarongo ana ki aia, ai huri oku whakaaro ki tēnei whare. Ka whakaaro, koe rā te āhua o tēnei whare, ne? Tēnei te hoha, tēnei te wahi o te raruraru, kia koutou, koe rā te wahi o te āta kōrero, te āta whakaaro, te āta whakarongo. Nā reira, tuatahi, mihi ana ki ngā kai whiriwhiri, kua whiriwhiria tēnei karemi. Aha koa te uauatanga o te tūkanga. And he hara te tūkanga kore hapa kore. He oi he tūkanga pai, he tūkanga tūmanako. Aha koa tērā uauatanga, te pere nuku a kini pē o tērā tūkanga. Kua kōkiri ki tēnei wā, ki tēnei whakanui, ki tēnei whakamutunga. A huri oku whakaaro hoki ki tō kai kōrero tuatahi a tōna me mai kauri au e kumea te kōrero. And pai tērā ki au mai hoki kauri e roa tōku kōrero ki a koutou tēnei ata. Tuarua ki te tūkanga, he aha na whainga o tēnei momo tūkanga. And kia oku whakaaro e toru nā otinga, e toru nā hua. Ko te tuatahi, whakaitia te hitori. Nā reira, kaua e wariwari tātou te hitori. Koira te mea tuatahi. Ko tuarua, ko te whakapāha. Te mutunga kia mai o te whakapāha o te kauanatanga ki a koutou. Mō te hara o nā tau kua hipa. And tua toru, ko te whakahokinga o whenua, me nā putia kia tautoko ai tō koutou whakarau ora o tō koutou hapori. Tētaia mātou te kauanatanga e whakarau ora nā hapori. Tētaia. Kauri tērā te haipapa, kauri tērā te ahinga o tēnei momo rangapū. Koira te mana o ia hapori. Nō reira, te tino whainga o tēnei tūkanga, kia tautoko ai te whakarau ora o tō koutou hapori. Maira noa tō koutou mana kia whakahaere tō koutou wahi. He oi mā te āwenga o nā hapa o te corona ki a koutou. Kua whakaiti tō raukaha. Nō reira, ki au, ki a mātou katoa, te tino tūmanako o tēnei tūkanga, ki a whakakaha, ki a whakanui tō koutou raukaha, tō koutou ahenga, ki a whakamomona ai, te ora o tō koutou hapori. Nā reira, tēnā koutou anō, mo tō harimai ki tēnei rā, ki tēnei wahi. Kua kite nā whakāhua o tō koutou tūpuna. Kua mate i te ponona o tēnei haerenga roa. Tēnei whakanui, tēnei whakatau, ko te wawata I wawata tia e rātou. Ai. Nā reira, e te manga o te whare, ka tuku te piri nei ki te whare. Tēnā.
Tēnā koe te speaker.
Tēnā
Tēnā no tātou katoa. Tēnā koutou ngauri o tara. Koutou o Ngāti Tara toka nui. E mihi ana ki ngā rangatira o ngā iwi o tērā rautau, tū whakaia, matarehua, tiki te aroha, te whakamaro mai oro. Koutou o hei me tia, ngā tamaiti o atua matua, nau mai rā. ngā uri o moi hau maunga, te ahi kā o hauraki. Tēnei rā te mihi atu kia koutou. Mai one mana ki te tonga, ki whakapaua, ki te raki, me ngā motu o tīkapa moana nau mai rā. Te aroha te maunga, waihau te awa, tīkapa moana, te moana, tumutumu te marae, te ruenga te tangata, tēnā koutou Ngāti Rāhiri tumutumu. E mihi atu ana kia koutou ki runga i ngā tūwhai ahua o te wā, o tira i tēnei te pānuitanga whakamutunga mō o koutou kreme, tiriti te take. Me taku unu i taku he, mō taku korenga i te pōwhiri i tēnei ata, e mai wiwi ana hau, engari e tikana me puta mai a hau ki te tautoko i a koutou, ki te whakawaha i te reo tautoko te rōpu kākāriki ki mua i tō koutou aroaro e ngā whanaunga o hauraki. Tēnei rā te uri o Ngāti whanaunga e mihi atu ana kia koutou. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, it is a humble pleasure to stand before this House in words of tautoko alongside colleagues of all sides who come before humbly the people of Hauraki as they roll out, they're rolling out to see this final reading of legislation long overdue. And I am also mindful that our people have had to endure generations of harm, generations of landlessness, of dislocation and loss, and then had to endure a 7 o'clock pōwhiri this morning. Nā wai teka e tikana tērā kia puta koutou i te whitu kraka i te ata mo te tahi pōwhiri. Ai, mara. Nō reire, mihi ana ki tō koutou kaha. Tō koutou kaha me te whakaiti, te whakai ki te tahi pōwhiri i te whitu kraka i te ata. But here we are, and I won't take long. I te mea he roa rawa tō koutou noho ki konei. But e tikana me mihi atu kia koutou. Ngā tūpuna, ngā kaumātua, ngā kai kreme, rātou i piko i enei o ngā kreme ki tēnei wā tonu. Me te pakeke haere. Te pakeke o te wehetanga o te iwi, te tohe tātou a tātou, anō ngā tohe ki te kāwanatanga kia tika o rātou mahi. And kua hau tētahi o wera e toto he tonu ana ki te kāwanatanga. I roto e waku hapu, anō hei me mapare mata. Nō reira, tūkaha koutou. Tērā pēr he timatanga tēnei, mō koutou, mō tātou, mō ngā hiahia me ngā wawata o tiwi. E tātou mā, these treaty settlements, of course, I've got an issue with, because our people are so gracious in accepting the 1 to 2 cents in the dollar for the immense loss for the people of Hauraki. When you read the settlement and you understand there's some 2-3% of whenua left in the hands of our Hauraki people. The 3 iwi that come before us today are humble, and you were very gracious and patient with a house that had taken so long to come to our side of the bridge. You know, the arawhiti is the Māori that always has to hikoe across the bridge. Engari, nai nei ka āhua haere mai te kāwanatanga ki tēnei taha, kōrero ai ki te Māori. Nō reira, ki roto i enei momo whakataunga, tihei mauriora. Tihei mauriora mō tō koutou kaha. Tihei mauriora ki tēnei whare, te tai mai ki te tautoko i enei o ngā kai kreme ngā iwi. E puta mai ana, ia marama. You are one of a number of iwi that are coming before us right now, and know that the journey can be a decade, can be 30 years to get to this point. And so we commemorate those who worked hard, but we also look to the future. And the future is in your hands. And with the settlement redress, both of $1, of relationship agreements, of some assets, whenua, what you may have that come back to you for mana whakahaere, it's a start.
And I think it opens the door. But again, as colleagues have already shared in this House, around the building of that bridge and the connection and the desire for the ongoing, enduring relationship. The relationship that can span across generations and see honourable kāwanatanga meet mana ki te mana with you as hapu, iwi, marae, iwi kāinga, ahi kā. For Hauraki has lost so much. And for you as Ngāti Tara Tokonui, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Hei, I thank you for your patience and your grace in coming to the House for this, the final reading, but that may this be the piriti, may this be the bridge of connecting generations within our own tribes, in protecting our whanaungatanga and intertribal relationships too, through the building of your capacity, your capability and what you might receive. There are opportunities for mahitahi. For together we are stronger. And for our mokopuna, it is the apōpō, and I see mokopuna in the room and we've heard mokopuna in the House. It is an exciting time to be Māori, to be from Hauraki, and as a mokopuna raised in the north but with deep connection to Hauraki through Ngāti Whanaunga and my tūpuna Ripeka Titiparu, who moed into our whānau and Ngāti Hine. We come home often and spend time and really have to reflect on the battles of the past, because it was through battle, the hononga that brought us together as tribes, but also the enduring connection to place. And whilst you may only retain at this time some 2 to 3% of whenua, it is your enduring ahi kā, the way that you have been on the whenua, pau te whenua, chia ki te taiao, tohe ki te kāwanatanga, tohe ki te kaunihera hoki. Don't forget about the kaunihera. Ko koutou tērā. And while we are celebrating a win today, it is the apōpō that we look forward to, and the strengthening of the bridge and the relationship with Crown and those tari kāwanatanga that you will have these relationship agreements moving forward, the way with which you are receiving assets, resources, whenua, and some financial commercial redress as a start. And of course acknowledging our trustees, those that have to do the mahi to pico the aspirations of the people. It's not an easy task. Sometimes you need a stab-proof vest, when you're going into the hui. Do you survive the AGM? You know, it's torturous sometimes, but torturous like some of our kōwhau today too. You know, because you're waiting for, you know, the mahi to get done. So I'm just so happy that we are here as a united house to tautoko this occasion, and know that this is an opportunity for growth, for potential, for a strong taiao, for a strong mokopuna, our future generations. Kia tōpū te reo, kia tautau tonu te ahi kā, ko koutou tērā e noho nei, e pakari nei, ki runga i tō koutou, wa tātou whenua, nō reira tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
David McLeod.
Tēnā koe e te māngai. Ki ngā uri o ngā iwi e toru, Ngāti Tara Tokonui, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu. Tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mahara mai ki tō whare parimata. Welcome to you all, and it's a pleasure for me to stand on this third reading, the last part of what the Minister described as a bit of an arduous task of the treaty settlement itself. And I acknowledge all those that have been involved with this in all degrees. Obviously, the people of the negotiating teams from the three iwi, but also our Crown representatives in the negotiations and members of Te Tari Whakatau, etc., that actually has got this to where it has today. I personally currently play a part in the Select Committee, the Māori Affairs Select Committee, and I did have the wonderful occasion of visiting Te Aroha and being wonderfully hosted there by Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu, but unfortunately I wasn't on the committee for the other two deeds or settlements that we're actually talking about today. But I also want to join Steve Abel's comments earlier on that my apologies for not being able to stay for the full mihi whakatau this morning. I would have liked to have heard the further speeches, but as Steve said, we actually had another settlement that we had a hearing for back here that we had to return for to do that in itself. So I welcome you here for this very, very important occasion. I want to talk about the wrongdoings and every settlement that we read of. We had another settlement that we had a first reading from Ngā Hapu o Te Iwi o Whanganui this morning, and it wouldn't surprise you that there's similar traits throughout all settlements, particularly with land loss and the significant land loss. We're not just talking small parts, to the point where it's repeated in the historical accounts that iwi are virtually left landless. Opportunity is taken away from you when you lose your access to whenua, and as a result, many of your people have to move away for work and to survive in that. And what you have today is trying to turn that back around. Although you all have ahika, the fact is that many of your people, and if I look at the number of people that are registered with Echua Iwi, many are not ahika anymore, and for very good reasons. But that is what the injustice that has been imposed on Māori that has caused that to actually happen. And I look back at the many travesties and my head shakes. It's almost like, how could that ever be, as what the Crown of the Day did. And I think of the opportunity that is lost and the anger that must bring, and the huge disappointment that must be on all Māori when it comes to looking at the challenges that exist today. And a lot of the work we do down here in Wellington is trying to get better outcomes for all New Zealanders, but particularly for Māori, because of what the results are of the wrongdoings of the Crown in the past. And it's absolutely appropriate that this is recognised. I've always said that if you want to understand the history of our country, your first visit should be the historical accounts, the acknowledgements that are within treaty settlements. If you read your treaty settlements, if your kids, your tamariki of your schools and your rohe were taught the history here, that is a great basis of understanding where things are today, why there are challenging conversations today, why there is anger at the Crown that remains today, because of this history here. We talk about teaching our tamariki te tiriti o waitangi. That's important, but I tell you, I almost say that all the adults of a place need to be taught this history as well, because a lot of our neighbours and our community of locals, they look at the anger that's actually expressed in that and they think, what's that all about? Well, read these settlements and you'll get an understanding of what this is all about. We have people, individuals, who are not too many generations of us of today that we're talking about here. People that have lost their lives over time as of the wrongdoing of the Crown in treaty settlements. History is important. Without understanding your history, without understanding your past, how can you appreciate where you are today and move forward as a community? So I thank you for, as many other speakers said, as making the compromise of what treaty settlements are. The huge compromise. We talk, Huana said, you know, the 1-2% of what it's worth. Well, in fact, it's probably a lot less than that, to tell the truth. The fact is, Māori make compromise with every treaty settlement with the purpose of trying to move forward, to rebuild. And I say rebuild because you have been deconstructed. We have been deconstructed so much because of the wrongdoing of the Crown. So this process that we're running now is just a moment in time, but what's so important is how we take this acknowledgement, this apology, this recompense, this cultural redress, everything that's within settlements, and use that positively to move forward as a people to be able to contribute to a wonderful nation that Aotearoa can actually be. So I look forward to this getting the royal assent, but it is just the beginning. It is just the beginning of the new phase of where we're going to. It needs to be recognised, it needs to be acknowledged, but now there also places a very important part of the Crown once this gets the royal assent. The commitments that are written in here, the Crown needs to make sure it does not fail again into the future. That is one of the very important subjects that the Māori Affairs Select Committee looks at annually, is we measure the Crown's performance against settlements to ensure that we're just not going back to where we've just been, fixing the wrongs of the past, not creating new wrongs and all that. So I look forward to the new beginning. I look forward to you all prospering with what these settlements provide you. The monetary recompense is a pittance, really, but we need something for you to start off with, and I hope you do well with what this opportunity presents. So with that, Madam Speaker, I feel privileged. I think every time anybody that speaks in this House is speaking on a treaty settlement, we in ourselves actually write ourselves into the Hansard of this place here. We become part of the history of what this is itself, and it's actually a privilege, I think, for us to be able to partake in that in itself. So I'm very happy to commend these bills to the House on this third reading, and I wish all of you all the very best. Kia ora.
Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Nati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. E Ngāti Rāwhiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Tara Tokanui. Kia ora, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. It is very much, as my colleague across the House just said, very much my honour to be able to stand here and speak on your settlement bills in the third reading today. We remember, though, today and farewell the tupuna who have paved this way, protected mana and held fast to the cause. To those here today and watching from afar at this moment, we honour the community's perseverance, your faith and strength in pursuing justice and truth. Despite the long journey, this stage has been reached, and what an exciting day it is. But it has been a long journey. I want to start by acknowledging my colleague Willie Jackson's speech about the time that we stood out on the forecourt quite a number of years ago, and it was a really disconcerting. It was such a traumatic moment for us all, for you and for us, because that was a moment that actually started well over 150 years ago, when rights were taken away from you, and the pathway and the determinations of the Crown at that time caused that traumatic experience that we witnessed those few years ago. So I'm excited that we are at this point. I'm excited that for you, that we have reached a resolution that you're at a new beginning right now. And people will say that this is the end of the process, and as I've just heard from across the House, this is actually the new beginning. So we get to the end of one process and we get to the start of a new beginning. And the new beginning, as we've heard, is about an apology, it's about a monetary figure, it's about land being given back to you, but it never will make up for that hurt and that mamai that you have suffered for so many years. Some of you have suffered it, and your tupuna have suffered and suffered and suffered. But it gives us the opportunity to make sure that your mokopuna, your tamariki going forward won't suffer anymore. And this is the opportunity for the Crown to say that enough is enough, and from this day we move forward together in that new beginning. But can I also say that the Crown has also been on that journey, and it's a journey that, again, I hear how could this happen? How could the Crown have done what they did? And that is horrific when we see it, and it is not acceptable. But the Crown has been on a journey to get where we are today for this acknowledgement. We've heard about some of the players that have been there over time, and my colleagues around the House have mentioned previous ministers, previous Prime Ministers. But I also want to take this opportunity in the third reading speech here today to acknowledge some of the main players that actually started that process, and one was Matt Rata, who established the Waitangi Tribunal, in which he said himself would settle the deeply felt and long-standing grievances of the Māori people over the treaty, which they regard as the foundation of their rights. There was a kind of a start and a point in time that the Crown stood up and changed, but then also someone who was a personal hero of mine in the work that he did, Geoffrey Palmer in 1985, leading the work where Parliament granted the Waitangi Tribunal retrospective powers to hear grievances dating back to 1840. I just wanted to make sure that those two people were acknowledged here, because it was part of the journey that we have been on as a Crown, so that we can acknowledge the hurt and the pain that you have been through and what has brought you here today and got us to this point of this new beginning. Like the previous speaker, I too had the absolute honour of being on the Māori Select Committee, albeit for a short time. It was only about 9 months that I was on that committee for. But I remember saying in the second reading of the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu Bill, I believe that every member of this House should spend time on that committee. It's about that understanding of history, and we heard again from the previous speaker how important history is. And that's why I'm such a passionate advocate for the now wiped Aotearoa New Zealand's history curriculum. I'm absolutely passionate that we tell history from all perspectives. And your history has been silenced for so long. And that's something that today rectifies that, but we need to rectify that long into the future. That day, that visit that I had that particular day to Te Araha, and where we sat listening to the submissions that were being put forward on that particular bill, was such a moment of change for me. It had such an impact on me that I went away from that day thinking, we have to do better. We have to make sure that we take these moments where we're working together in partnership and do better going forward, so that again, tamariki, mokopuna and future generations will never have to share that same pain that you and your tupuna have been through for so many generations. I'll never forget having that moment of clarity around what had been taken from iwi, how they had been treated in the journey, the promises that had been made, and the many broken promises that had occurred. Again, something that every member of this Parliament and future members of this Parliament need to experience, to understand how we can strengthen Māori's hopes and ambitions. I shouldn't say it quite like that. It's about you telling us your hopes and ambitions, and what can we do to support you. And that's what today is about, the new beginning around you taking control of the next stage of this journey, because it is about that next stage, and it's about you having control over where you want to go with your hopes and ambitions for today's generation and future generations as well. Again, today doesn't make up for that hurt. Today will never make up for that hurt, but it goes some way for you to start the next chapter for you and your people going forward. It's a new chapter of a partnership that we can walk alongside or behind and support where you want to be for your future as a people. I too want to say that it is again, as I started, the greatest honour to be able to stand and support your part of the history of where you are going today. I don't take that lightly. It is something that I will forever be grateful and see when I finally leave this place as being the highlight of my career, of being able to stand here and support that and be, even though I said a very short part of that time on Select Committee, that it meant the absolute world to me. It makes me think, what can I do now going forward to help future iwi like yourselves? So enjoy today. I hope that it is a true celebration for you. I hope that you feel the joy that we have for you. I really sincerely want to look forward to seeing where you take your hopes, your aspirations in the future. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Madam Speaker.
Rima Naklo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's also my quiet pleasure to stand up and add my kōrero in support of this bill, where we've combined the settlements of three bills, the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill and Ngāti Tara Tokanui's Claim Settlement Bill and Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill. I'd like to start by also bestowing a warm welcome to everyone that's in the gallery today, and I thank you immensely for showing us once again how important it is, how milestones like this are so important. We all know that that travelling around is extra difficult these days with what's going on overseas affecting us here. So thank you very much for being here today, to all of you guests in the gallery. I really love how our beautiful and young Hana Rāwhiti said that with moments like this, the public memory begins to shift. And that really resonated as I listened to Hana Rāwhiti's speech, because it's true. From what I've learned, as the speaker just before me mentioned, some of us, well, I don't whakapapa to any Māori iwi, I whakapapa to Lebanon, but I continuously and consistently learn about the grievances that our Māori brothers and sisters have endured in our past. It's really quite a contradiction, and I think I've mentioned this before, that Aotearoa, New Zealand is so beautiful. We have such beautiful landscapes, a lot of beauty, and yet there's such, in some ways, an ugly history. And so, as Minister Goldsmith said in his speech, the Crown recognises and acknowledges the severe wrongs, because the wrongs were severe. And yes, we've placed these three third readings in one third reading, so that, as Willie Jackson said, this is how desperate we are to get along with things. And so we're desperate for our guests and your whānau to get along with things. I'd like to acknowledge the words that were mentioned this morning by Mātua Koro. And although I'm not fluent in the reo, and I didn't understand everything that was said in the kōrero, I do feel that my heart understood the undercurrent. And I thank you, Mr. Koro, for for sharing what you did, and I thank you for the challenges that you put to us, because they were from your heart. And one thing I know is that our ministers listen, and my heart listened as well. I too was not involved in the beginning of the processes for Ngāti Hei and Ngāti Tara Tokanui settlement bills, but the common thread is the severe loss of land in 3 of these settlements, Madam Speaker. When I think of Ngāti Hei, my first trip to New Zealand, because I was born in Australia to Lebanese parents, my beautiful husband took me to the Coromandel coast. And I remember as we were driving there, he said to me, this coast is considered one of the most beautiful in the world. And when I arrived there, yes, my heart broke with happiness with how beautiful your coastline is. I'm really glad, I'm very pleased that part of the cultural redress is that the key redress includes the vesting of Te Pure Hot Water Beach domain and the recognition arrangements of a Cathedral Cove and Kovia Island Nature Reserve are also part of that redress. With respect to Ngāti Tara Tokanui, one of the 12 iwi and hapu with customary interests in the wider Hauraki area, again, there was major land confiscation, unfair dealings, and there's little evidence to show that Ngāti Tara Tokanui actually signed sale agreements, Madam Speaker. And so sometimes when we wonder why there is so little trust between some of our Māori and government agencies, I guess history like this can make people stop wondering and understand more. And Madam Speaker, we were really pleased and very blessed to go to the whenua of Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu. And I mentioned this in my last speech. I loved it. Thank you very much. We were around the mountain of love and we absolutely felt the love. So in closing, Madam Speaker, I do wish all of the iwi well. I know that you put your mokopuna at the forefront of your minds when you're going forward with these settlements. I hope to a small extent at least some of the burden can be lifted, and that I know you will make your ancestors proud. I commend this bill to the House.
Georgie Dancy.
Thank you. I'm honoured to rise to speak to the 3rd reading of the Ngāti Rahiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill, and Ngāti Tara Tokanui Claim Settlement Bill. Nau mai haere mai ki parimata. I would like to start by acknowledging the iwi, the hapu, the whānau who have come to the House today for this very important occasion and commend you on your mahi in getting these bills to the 3rd and final reading here in Parliament. I wish you all the very best for the future. Once the settlement is concluded, I hope that your whānau and hapu flourish and that this settlement gives opportunity to all of your tamariki and mokopuna. I sit on the Māori Affairs Select Committee, so it's a real honour and privilege to be able to contribute to this process, to hear from iwi about the wrongs done and to see that Crown apology written into legislation. Every settlement we pass in this House is a significant milestone for Aotearoa, New Zealand, and our journey in truly recognising te tiriti o Waitangi. But what we do here is such a small part. It is the iwi, the hapu, the whānau who do the real mahi, working with the Crown to get the bill into legislation, accepting a settlement, and then working to ensure that that settlement provides opportunity for whānau while protecting your whenua. Earlier in the year, as part of the Māori Affairs Select Committee, we had the opportunity to go and visit some iwis who have had their settlements concluded. Some of them were concluded in the last few years, some of them were 20 years old. And it was a really interesting kaupapa because we were able to learn about what the iwi did post-settlement, what they put the money into, what they did with their whenua, what they did as part of the redress. And that's a fascinating journey, and I hope in years to come that I can hear what it is that your iwis do in the future with the settlement. It was a really huge privilege to attend the whakatau this morning and hear from you and celebrate this milestone with all three iwi. To hear your kōrero from the Kai kōrero this morning was a real privilege. One of the important whakaaro that came out of it for me was the presence of ancestors of tupuna. That this settlement, as well as acknowledging the hurt, the apology and the journey, it really acknowledges those who have gone before. I think you articulated it much better than I, but I'll give it a go. The whānau that endured that suffering, the loss of their tikanga, reo and whenua, that sacrificed so much, the real honour is them today. It was incredible to see their photos there at the mihi whakatau and to see them in the gallery today. Some of your kōrero today sent a strong message to the government about the importance of honouring te tiriti, and I commend you for that. Settling a treaty bill is one thing, but truly honouring te tiriti of Waitangi is another. And we must go further. Frankly, right now, I don't think we're heading in the right direction. I'd love to see a true partnership with Māori. I don't think we're there yet. In order to achieve that full partnership, we must ensure that our tamariki, our rangatahi, have the knowledge and history of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the hurt that was caused. And I hope that as part of your settlement, you're able to share that kōrero and that journey with your mokopuna tamariki. Through this settlement, the Crown seeks to atone for the injustices done and rebuild a relationship based on trust and honourable treaty partnership. Other speakers have spoken to it never being enough, and I tautoko that. It's never enough, but it's a start. And as I mentioned, I really look forward to seeing where you go with this, what opportunities you take for reconnection of your people to their whenua, tikanga and reo, so that the mokopuna of your iwi feel connected to their whenua, their awa, their tikanga and te reo Māori. Madam Speaker, it is with a great pleasure that I commend all three of these bills to the House. Nō reira, naira te mihi kia koutou katoa, kia u, kia maia, kia manawa nui, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kusla tangare menu.
Tēnā rau atu koe e te manga o te whare. E hara i te mea, noi naia nei te aroha, no ngā tipuna, i tuku iho. Nā reira kia koutou, ngā uri i tuku iho, o Ngāti Rāhiri tumutumu, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Tara toka nui, tēnā rau atu koutou katoa. Tēnei hoki te mihi atu kia rātou mā, e kawea nei i roto i ngā whakāhua, rātou i tai whakāhua mai, rātou i tai o roto o te whare o mahara i roto i o koutou ngākau, i roto hoki i o koutou tūmanako. Huri noa kia tātou, tihei mauri ora tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou katoa, i tai mai, i runga i te rau o te aroha. Madam Speaker, although I don't sit on the Māori Affairs Select Committee, it is indeed my pleasure to be here and take what will be the last contribution of this House in the third hearing of your bills. Tēnei te mihi nui atu kia koutou i tai mai i runga i te rau aroha, i runga hoki i te humārie. Koutou i tai kotahi mai, aha koa i tai mai koutou katoa i runga i tō ake mana motu hake. Ko tai mai koutou hei kanohi mō rātou mā, ko wehe atu. Ko tai mai koutou ki te kawe i ngā tumanako o rātou kāre anō kia whānau mai ki tēnei ao.
Ahakoa he ngāwari nui ho te waiata I timata tēnei e au. He waiata e kawea nei I tērā āhuatanga e tino whakapono ai tātou te iwi Māori, arā te aroha. Nā reira, ahakoa ngā taumahatanga I pehi nei I runga I o koutou tipuna, I tangohia o koutou whenua o koutou moana, I tae mai koutou I runga I te aroha mō rātou mā, I runga I te aroha mō koutou whānau, I runga I te aroha mō koutou maunga moana awa whenua, I runga I te aroha mō tō koutou whenua o Aotearoa. Nā reira, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou I tae mai I runga I te rau aroha, kia neke ai tātou katoa o Aotearoa ki mua. Tēnei te mihi atu. Earlier in the House, we heard the Honourable Winston Peters talk about the peanuts that are received from these settlements. And, oh, sorry, Winston. I don't think he said that. Willie Jackson. Hey, easy mistake, whānau. We'll leave them to decide who was either praised or insulted by that mistake. Yeah, future coalition. Let's not start rumours. Let's stick to you guys, whānau. He talked about, actually I'll quote him, through peanuts from these settlements we see hope. And that is true. Although it's been acknowledged across this House, the compensation received doesn't even go near compensating for the wrongs that were done. There is hope. And I want to talk about the hope that Māoridom bring to this country that can sometimes be forgotten and refer to the amazing Māori economy, now worth $126 billion. Portions are $66 billion made up by Māori business and employers, 14 by trusts and corporations, and 19 by self-employed Māori. Our entrepreneurial nature has been there, mai rā nō, and while this doesn't go anywhere near compensating you for the wrongs done throughout generation, I look forward to hearing amazing reports of the contribution you make to this Māori economy as we move forward. Because let me tell you, the world is ready to do business with us all. So tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. Hoi anō rā, ko taku kōrero kia tātou. It's awesome to hear the contributions, the real, the empathy, but how do we carry that on outside these walls? We must champion for everything that's being said across this House, not just in the way we write legislation moving forward, but as we move through our communities in Aotearoa. Attitudes towards settlements and attitudes towards the contribution that our whānau, hapu and iwi make as good kaitiaki, as good partners, must be carried beyond the legislation we write to our attitudes in our communities. Hoi anō rā, hei whakakapi, tēnei te mihi anō kia koutou ngā uri a Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu, Ngāti Hei, Ngāti Taratokua Nui, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou katoa mō tō humarie, mō tō aroha nui ki tēnei whenua o tātou.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The motion is agreed to.
Ngāti Rāhiri Tumutumu Claim Settlement Bill, third reading. Ngāti Tara Tokanui Claim Settlement Bill, third reading. Ngāti Hei Claim Settlement Bill, third reading.
I understand. I understand there will be a waiata. Members, the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m.